5 years ago, when Ye Fan was studying the ways to reach the level of honor martial artist, he was ambushed. As a result, his two souls and six spirits were separated, and most of his soul and personality were sealed within the jade pendant. Fan's body continued to exist but was devoid of reason. Even at his relative's funeral, he behaved like a small, irrational child. Of the entire Great Ye family, only the grandfather and Fan survived. The young man was about to get married, but the engagement was unexpectedly broken off. Suddenly, the fiancés of the older brothers appeared and publicly announced that they would become Little Fan's wives and continue the lineage of the Great Ye family. During their sexual encounter, the girls, completely by accident, helped Fan break the seal and recover the soul and personality of the young man. Yu Linglong, clinging to the guy with her ample breasts, asked what kind of daughters-in-law these were. Now, Fang should call them and Shu Yikshe his wives. The recklessness of his daughters-in-law helped young Fan start putting a plan into motion to take revenge for the death of all his relatives who were murdered by evil enemies. Now that Fan's soul has returned, he has regained his strength and is almost invincible in the Great Sha Empire, so he will be able to punish the killers. Ye Fan's body was once again filled with strength and his eyes sparkled. Thanks to his daughters-in-law, he was no longer insane, but furious and ready for a terrible revenge. Yu Linlong was the fiancé of Ye Fan's eldest brother, who was killed along with other family members, and the young woman was eager to take revenge on the villains. Zhu Yixue was engaged to the seventh young master of the Great Ye family, and their wedding was already scheduled when her fiancé was murdered. The astonished Fan saw right in front of him the lush breasts of one of his sisters-in-law. The man was horrified by what his older brother's wives were doing. The young man stammered and mumbled, asking his sisters-in-law not to come any closer, but the girls, dressed in seductive lingerie, kept crawling persistently toward Fan. He lowered his gaze and stared at the firm breasts of the beautiful Yikshe. The boy's head was spinning with excitement. Were they serious? Yu Linlong whispered to the fool that he should call them wives. The young man broke out in a sweat from excitement. The girls' bodies were so tempting. Shu Yixue kindly told her husband to behave himself. If Fang didn't understand something, they would teach him everything and explain everything to him. Ye Fan's face turned red. He really wanted to tell his older sisters-in-law that he wasn't a fool anymore, that there was no need to treat him that way. Meanwhile, the Yi family kept burying their children. You died under very mysterious circumstances, and for some reason, their remains always disappeared. Yi Zhenguo was killed in the northern region of Xia on July 28th at the age of 48, and his remains were never found. On the same day, July 28th, Ye Zhenhua, 43 years old, was killed in the eastern district of Xia. Their remains were never found. Ye Xingbang and Ye Xingcheng were killed in the Xuanwu district on the same day, July 28th, and their remains were never found. That same day, Ye Lentian from the southern district and Ye Zhenguo from the southeastern district of Sha were killed, and their remains were not found either. The venerable general of the Dan kingdom, Niu, told Elder Yi with regret that the enemy's plan was too insidious, that they never saw it coming. The head of the Ye family, Cheng Feng, replied that the members of the Ye family never expected to enjoy a peaceful old age once they set foot on the battlefield, but he never thought that betrayal by their own people would be even more dangerous than the battlefield itself. They attacked on the same day and at the same time. Someone had their sights set on the Yi family. Yi Changfeng accidentally kicked his youngest grandson's favorite toy, and Feng yelled at his grandpa not to touch his Peppa Pig. The young boy tripped and fell loudly to the floor while chasing his toy, and the slippers flew off the feet of Ye's youngest son, who had lost his mind. The jade pendant on the man's chest began to glow, and Fan's soul, along with his ancient and immense powers sealed inside, tried to break free. Hugging Peppa, Fan said with a smile that his grandpa helped him stop the pig, and now she's with him. He really loves Peppa. The Ye family patriarch bent down and gently told his grandson to get up quickly, reaching out his hand to him. Mia looked at the boy with compassion. Chang Feng said that only he, the patriarch, and little Feng were left of the Ye family, and that to continue the bloodline, Ye Feng would marry a girl from the Xuan family. The old general Ye Chengfeng declared sternly that the great Ye family would never fall. No matter what happened, they would maintain their position. Everyone whispered, could this really be the youngest son of the Ye family? He was completely crazy, and yet he was the family's genius, a true Qilin. Ye Fan was only 15 years old when he reached the level of Grandmaster, thus joining the ranks of the greatest masters in human history. If it hadn't been for the car accident he suffered 5 years ago, which left him a fool, he would now be the head of the Yi family. He was incredibly strong. The eldest daughter of the Xuan family was still willing to marry him despite him having lost his mind, and they had been very close since childhood. But then Xuan Zhenguo exclaimed, Ye Fan has lost his mind. The Xuan family can't allow Xuan Yufei to ruin her life. Therefore, today, the Xuan family officially breaks off the engagement between their eldest daughter, Yufei, and the youngest member of the family, Ye Fan. The head of the Ye family was so upset that blood spurted from his mouth. His old battle wounds flared up, and he never expected this from the Xuan family. Cheng Feng staggered, but Fan caught his grandfather. A stream of blood gushed from the old man's mouth, but he soon regained his senses and stood up again. The young man reproachfully asked Xuan Yufei why she had upset his grandfather so much, and if she really didn't want to be his wife, Fan's anymore. Chang Feng reminded Yufei that even after what happened in Fanum, she hadn't abandoned him. He believed she wasn't like that. So what had happened? The girl almost cried. Her uncle answered for her, explaining that now there was only an old man and a fool left in the Yi family, not like it was 5 years ago. At that time, the Xuan family was willing to go through with this marriage because the Ye family was powerful. But now, this marriage doesn't really make any sense. The head of the Yi clan growled, It's all clear now. The Xuan only respect the strong and oppress the weak, ignoring the rules. Now we see what they're really like. Yufei told Fan sadly that she was very sorry she couldn't marry him. The young man was surprised, but they still had a good time playing together. And then, everyone heard Zhuxei's words. The girl said that if this girl, Xuan Yufei, doesn't want to marry Fan, then they will get married. 2 beautiful women stepped forward, and those present recognized them as the brides of the eldest and 7th sons of the Ye family, Ye Fan's eldest daughters-in-law. One is the 3-star Valkyrie Dan, and the other is the director of a pharmaceutical company, the eldest daughter of the Su family. The women of the Ye family are truly exceptional. Yulin Long told Yufei's surprised father that she was the eldest daughter-in-law of the Ye family, and that she had come to the groom's funeral, but she would stay with the Ye family. Zhu Shui announced that she was the 7th daughter-in-law of the Ye family, that her fiancé had died, and that she had no intention of leaving the family that had welcomed her so warmly. The girls approached Fan and told him that they represented the 7 brides of the Yi family, and that they were all willing to marry Yi Fan to continue the family line. Xuan Zhenguo was left speechless with surprise. It couldn't be that the 7 best girls in the country were willing to marry a fool. This news hit like a bolt of lightning. Real goddesses were going to become the wives of a madman. What courage. They support the Yi family. The confused Fan tried to get away from the persistent daughters-in-law. He was unbelievably attractive. Those girls were pure passion. And suddenly, the young man felt an intense heat in his chest, coming from the jade talisman he wore, which suddenly began to vibrate strongly. And then the talisman opens. Fan cursed. 5 years passed. Finally, he broke the seal and reached the high level of a venerable warrior. 5 years ago, when Fan was training to prepare for a major breakthrough, he was attacked, which caused his body, soul, and 6 spirits to be separated. He barely caught a glimpse of the man who attacked him before collapsing onto the pavement and losing consciousness and his memory. On that fateful day, Yi Fan was run over by a heavy construction truck, and it seems his enemies didn't expect the young man to survive. The man was seriously injured in the accident. He lost a lot of blood, but still managed to survive. His enemies thought he had lost his strength and was no longer a threat. A strange twist of fate caused most of Fan's soul to become trapped in a jade amulet he wore on his chest. However, it turned out that this amulet contained countless scriptures that gave Fan many opportunities to train. But without outside help, the boy could only wait for the amulet's effect to wear off so he could return to his body and take revenge on all his enemies. And now Ye Fan has returned, but all his uncles and brothers have mysteriously died. And then there's that assassination attempt from 5 years ago. Who's behind all of this? But now that Fan is at the peak of his venerable warrior level, he has almost no equals, so he'll find the culprits and kill them. But the situation between the two daughters-in-law was very tense. There were a lot of people around, and everyone was watching them with curiosity. Zhenhui suddenly burst out laughing. Fan was a real fool, and even if he regained his senses, he wouldn't have been able to face those who killed his relatives. Yulin Long pushed Xuan aside, who seemed amused, saying that this was an internal matter of the Yi family and didn't concern anyone else. Fan thought that the daughters-in-law had publicly declared their desire to marry him, making it clear that they still supported the Ye family. If he were to say, now that he had regained his strength and mental clarity, it would cause their enemies to attack with full force, and many could suffer the consequences. To protect the family, he'll have to play dumb for a while. Fan hugged Lin Long and exclaimed, his little sister will play with him. Yi Cheng Fang, stunned, walked over to the girls. His eyes wide with surprise. He hadn't expected so much resistance from them. Yulin Long told her grandfather that from now on, she was his daughter-in-law, and asked him to leave the rest to her. She and the girls would take care of it. The head of the Ye family reluctantly agreed to the powerful Valkyrie. He had no idea what the girls had planned, or how all of this would turn out for everyone. Turning to Xuan Yufei, Yulin Long, as Ye Fan's wife, announced that their engagement was off and that she was free to leave. Yufei took a few steps back and mumbled quietly, saying she was very sorry, but that it was her family's will. They didn't want to get involved with the Ye family. Fan thought that he wouldn't go after those who abandoned him, but they would regret their decision themselves when he restored the Ye family to power and glory. Lin Long told Yikshe that they were the first, and starting next month, there would be 5 more with Fan, and that they should give birth to as many heirs as possible. Poor Fan blushed. His daughters-in-law clung to him. He stammered to them to wait. He wanted to tell them something, but it was useless. The daughters-in-law did everything they could to give birth to heirs for the Ye family so that their enemies would regret everything they had done. The spy reported to the elder of the Zhang family that the Ye family's funeral had been completed, that everything had gone smoothly, and that Changfeng hadn't done anything unusual. Just as the Ye family's daughters-in-law announced that they would become Ye Fan's wives, old Zhang ordered that chickens be killed to scare the monkey. The elder said that the operation 5 years ago was a success and that the same person should handle this matter. The spy bowed. The elder was right. It just so happened that young Zhao was crazy about Xu Yikshe, the 7th daughter-in-law of the Ye family, and he would probably be thrilled to win her heart. Chapter 7. Zhang grumbled irritably. Yi Fan is lacking in both intelligence and strength, and as long as he stays that way, it doesn't matter whether he's alive or dead. However, if this guy starts acting strange, he must be killed immediately. He cannot be allowed to regain his strength or intelligence. The elder Yi Chengfeng invited all the daughters-in-law and thanked them for attending, but the funeral was now over, and everyone was free to leave. Yulin Long stepped forward and, on behalf of all the girls, told Grandpa that they wanted to marry Ye Fan and continue the Ye family line. The surprised head of the Yi family turned around. So it wasn't a joke? But why would they do that? They're all young beauties from prominent families. Wenlong hugged them and told them that their decision was final. Each of them would take turns accompanying Ye Fan for a month. All the daughters-in-law were convinced that they needed to give birth to as many heirs as possible for the Ye family and take revenge on their enemies for the murder of their loved ones. Fan was stunned. Were they serious? Would his 7 daughters-in-law really become his wives? What was he to them? A baby-making machine. How horrifying! Linlong watched little Fan closely and noticed that she had just sensed fluctuations in her aura. Could it be that her strength had been restored? The guy came to, made a face, and shouted, "Getting revenge! Pew pew! Terrible revenge!" The girl lowered her head sadly. It seemed like it was just her imagination. The eldest daughter-in-law firmly grabbed the baby's face with her strong hands and squeezed it. The child mumbled that it hurt, but she didn't let go. Linglong said that Ye Fan should remember that he himself had been the greatest genius, that he had been at the top, and that he would be able to do it again. And they, the 7 pure virgins, will marry him and take care of him for the rest of his life, because their fiancés were killed. But if Fan dared to betray any of his wives, Linlong swore he would chase him to the ends of the earth with his sword. Yi Fan thought, they marry him, risking becoming the target of condemnation from the whole world. What kind of determination and courage does it take to do that? Linlong said through tears, if you still have any sense left, protect the Ye family, protect your wives, and avenge your relatives. The man's face changed slightly. He clenched his fists and silently swore that damn debt would definitely be repaid. Xu Yixue asked her older sister if she was putting too much pressure on Ye Fan. His mind and strength still hadn't returned. He needed to wait a little longer. Linlong reassured the 7th daughter-in-law, telling her that she had already contacted the sage doctor Li Chanke, who would take care of little Ye Fan. Old Cheng Feng agreed with his eldest daughter-in-law that if Lei Chen Ko took over, he really could save their beloved baby. Fan thought that his grandfather had very serious internal injuries and that if nothing was done, he would die soon. The young man shouted, "Hooray, let them heal me." And he decided to teach some techniques to this sacred healer, Lei, and heal his grandfather with his own hands. Linlong couldn't figure out what was going on with Fan's aura, but Yik Sui clung to the boy and whispered to him not to worry, that they would heal him. The young man sighed. No matter what they call it, they still want to turn him into a baby-making machine for all their murdered relatives. The beautiful Zhu Yishu blessed. Ah, what a strong and powerful body little Fan has. It's strange even for a madman. The eldest daughter-in-law told Yikshe that, according to their agreement, she would accompany Ye Fan first for a month, and that she should do her best. The head of the Ye family, Ye Chengfeng, shed tears. What good growth. Grandpa's very grateful to them for not abandoning their family in these difficult times. Yo Linglong replied to the old man with a smile. How could it be any other way? They were one family and had to support each other no matter what. Grandpa walked over to his grandson and lightly tapped Fan on the chest with his strong general's fist. The young man swallowed involuntarily. Ye Cheng Feng said sternly that regardless of whether the baby returned to normal or not, he had to take care of that brave girl and not make his grandpa angry. The young man replied to the old man that they were his wives now and that he would love all of them, so Grandpa didn't have to worry about that. But for now, I'll have to keep everyone in the dark a little longer. Yikshe said it was already getting dark and that she would take Ye Fan with her. Today, Zhao Tianlong was hosting a business banquet, and Zhao Yikshe thought it was a great opportunity for little Ye Fan to get out for a bit. That name, Zhao Tianlong, reminded Fan of the incident that happened 5 years ago when he was hit by a huge truck while training. Before losing consciousness, Fan saw that the truck driver was a man with a scar. The young man didn't know his name. However, the boy had the man's face clearly etched in his memory. Now he could recognize him among hundreds of millions of different faces. And today, at the funeral, Yi Fan saw this man. He was standing behind Zhao Tianlong, watching everything closely. Most likely, the attack from 5 years ago was orchestrated by the Zhao family. And if that's the case, Fan will begin his revenge against them. Fan's ex-fiancée and her uncle returned to their residence after the funeral for the men of the Ye family. Yufei was feeling Sam. Her uncle looked into her room and indignantly asked the girl if he hadn't told her to get ready for young Master Zhao's banquet. The girl, with tears in her eyes, replied to her uncle that she didn't feel like it. That's why she hadn't gotten dressed and that she didn't want to go to the banquet. Her uncle asked if Yufei was still thinking about that idiot Ye fan. He had already told her that the Ye family was finished and that the daughters-in-law's words were nothing but empty talk. The girl became furious. "Well, you're going to that banquet," her uncle reminded her. "You need to put on something elegant. There will be important people there." The man let out a deep sigh. Yufei was still just a girl, but for the sake of the Xuan family, this had to be done. It was dangerous to get involved with the Ye family. When the door closed behind her uncle, Fan's ex-fiancée collapsed to her knees, helpless. Now she would be put on display like a beautiful doll. She let out a deep sigh and softly whispered the name of her beloved boyfriend, the one she had been with since early childhood. When Ye Fan and Xu Yikshe got home, the girl unbuttoned the boy's pajamas, and he asked his daughter-in-law in surprise why she was taking them off. Yikshui was surprised. Fang hadn't trained for such a long time, but then why was his body still in such good shape? It was simply amazing. The young man smiled and asked the beautiful girl if Yikshe really wanted to touch him. The girl snorted, "Oh no, she'll touch it later." The seventh daughter-in-law tossed an outfit to Fan, telling him it was for today's banquet, that he could wear it, and that they would be going. Yikshui asked Fan not to call her daughter-in-law anymore, but wife. The man smiled and said, "All right, he has another wife." The girl thought bitterly, Fan was a genius, but his fiancée abandoned him at his lowest point. What a shame for Yufei. Yikshe was sure that Fang had been through a lot, so she needed to pay more attention to him and not let him get hurt again. She hugged the boy and quietly told him that Ye Fan was a good guy, that he had promised his grandfather to love all his beautiful new wives. The seventh daughter-in-law promised that from now on, Yikshe would always be his wife, that she would love him tenderly and take care of her baby fawn. The man hugged the delicate beauty tightly and replied that Yikshe's wife was the best, and that he felt really good and at peace with her. Yikshe was puzzled. After being intimate with Fan, she felt a very strange sensation. Her body became extremely warm. This had never happened to her before. Ye Fan's strong body was filled with a burning energy thanks to his daughter-in-law, as if a powerful source of power was blazing inside him. The man smiled, thinking that this ability still remained with him, despite the 5-year break caused by the assassination attempt. This mysterious fire is the reason why Ye Fan became a Grand Master at just 15 years old. When he comes into contact with a girl and she feels emotions, Fang transforms that spiritual warmth into qi and becomes stronger. And even without contact with the girl, the fire itself generates heat, which helps with training and significantly speeds up the development of strength. Now, Fan had 7 wives, so he didn't have to worry about making progress, and then there was a knock at the door. The head of the Zhu family was calling for Yikshu to come see him. The messenger informed Xu Yikshe that the family patriarch and the second mayor were there and asked her to come to them as soon as possible. The girl wondered if her relatives, apparently, wanted to condemn her for her decision to marry Fan. The messenger was left speechless, not knowing how to respond. Yikshe shook her head firmly and said she was ready to leave, even now. Her relatives' opinions couldn't stop her. Fan wondered if it was because the Zhu family didn't agree with her wish to marry him. He had to find out for himself. Second uncle Xu Minghao shouted at Yikshui, asking her what she was doing, if she was crazy, and why she had announced she would become the wife of that fool Ye Fan. The girl listened to her uncle rage, and he asked her if she really wanted their family to be buried along with the Ye family. One of the brothers backed Minghao up. The Ye family is finished. There's no point getting involved with them. She'll drag everyone down with her. But Xu Yikshe calmly replied that she had her own plans and had no intention of changing them, even if the whole world was against her and against the Yi family. Fan secretly watched this family meeting, thinking that the Zhu family was condemning the 7th daughter-in-law for agreeing to marry him. The relatives gathered there began to protest angrily, suggesting that this stubborn woman should be expelled from the Zhu clan for her irrational behavior. Terrified by the terrible deaths of the strongest members of the Ye family, Yixui's relatives shouted that she should be expelled from the clan. Xu Minghao turned to his older brother, the head of the family, and told him he should take better care of his eldest daughter. The head of the Zhu family raised his hand authoritatively, demanding that the clan elders stop their commotion and allow him to speak at the meeting. Xu Honghai, the head of the Xu clan, stood up and suddenly announced that he supported his daughter Yixui's decision to get married. The girl couldn't believe it. Her father, going against the opinion of most of the elders, supported her. "Dear Dad, that's brave." Hung Hai asked who was the first to support the Zhu family 30 years ago when they were on the verge of collapse, and it was the Ye family. If it weren't for the Ye family, all the Zucks would be beggars or dead by now. So Yixue is right, and anyone who disagrees can go to hell. Suddenly, almost all the elders' phones in the Xu clan rang at the same time. They all received unpleasant messages. They informed the chief that the suppliers had suddenly announced they refused to work with Xu, and that people wanted to cut ties with them. Hong Hai frowned. It seems that those who attacked the Ye family have now turned their attention to them, and they're saying that someone powerful is wiping out the Ye family. The younger brothers convinced their eldest brother that now was not the time for nobility. They, the Xu family, couldn't afford to provoke the Ye family's enemies. The head of the Xu clan lowered his head. He didn't want to be ungrateful, but he also didn't want to drag his family into ruin. What should he do in this situation? Menghao yelled at Yixei's niece, blaming her for everything, saying that because of her, the Xu family might disappear and that they would never be able to form an alliance with the Jia family. Yixue replied that there would be someone from the Xia family at the banquet today and that she would do everything possible to maintain the relationship. The young woman stated that both her duty and the interests of the Zhu family were important to her, and that she had never refused to protect her family. If the elders don't believe in her, they can sell their properties and leave in order to survive. She won't stop, huh? Yifan admired his wife Yixei's courage and resilience. She was truly a worthy representative of the great Ye family. The man wondered which member of the Xia family would be there today. Maybe he could help Yixue with the contract. He needed to take a look. Suddenly, Zhao Tianlong's group showed up and he exclaimed, "It's the fool from the Ye family. He's probably looking for candy. Now they'll help him out." Fan thought that Zhao Tianlong was just looking for trouble. He put on a foolish face and asked where the candy was. The young master of the Zhao family spat loudly into the remaining whiskey, intending to make the hated former genius of the Ye family drink it all. Tianlong tossed his cigarette butt into the same glass. His companions laughed gleefully. They enjoyed their boss and ringleader's nasty prank. They joined in the fun, also tossing cigarette butts into the glass and starting to pick their noses and ears, adding everything to the glass. They handed me a glass. Tianlong said he had prepared a sweet drink. Zhao envied Fan because 7 beauties wanted to marry him at the same time. Lun was eager to prove to everyone that Fan was useless. The guys shouted at Fan to drink. It was delicious, and he didn't forget to thank Brother Lun. Fan pretended to be delighted. "So that's what the guys are drinking. Must be a really expensive wine. That's really awesome." Zhao Tianlong and his friends were cracking up with laughter. Yifan really was a complete idiot, and the young man said something was still missing. Yifan called the cleaning lady over and politely asked her to wait a moment since he had a small matter to take care of. He needed to add more ingredients to improve the flavor. The cleaning lady was shocked. The young man added dirty cleaning water to the glass. Tianlong, still laughing, told his friends to record everything so everyone could see how the former great genius drank dirty water and spat it out. Suddenly, Tianlong's laughter stopped, and he felt a strong hand grab him by the throat. He stammered as he asked Fan what he was doing. A fan exclaimed that treats should be shared, so Brother Zhao had to drink first and poured the contents of the glass into Luna's mouth. Tianlong's companions watched in horror as their boss literally vomited after drinking a glass of slop. Zhao growled in anger, thinking about how that monster Ye Fan had forced him, Tianlong, to drink that filth, and that simply telling the idiot wasn't enough. Fan put on a surprised face and asked Brother Zhao, "What's wrong?" Isn't it delicious? He himself said it was a sweet drink. Fan's beautiful wives forbade him from drinking, saying it was harmful. So he shared his wine with Tianlong as a token of gratitude for his care. During those 5 years, Fan not only learned martial arts, but also worldly experiences sealed in the amulet by 13 masters. Zhao Tianlong shouted at his men to beat Ye Fan to death in revenge for daring to humiliate him so much. The men rushed at Ye Fan. He was confused. Were they really going to go through with it? He clenched his fists. He would have to defend himself against them. Suddenly, a booming order to stop echoed through the air, and a very strong man with a thunderous voice asked who dared to lay a hand on his brother, little Fan. Strong hands grabbed the heads of Zhao's frightened henchmen, who had rushed at Ye Fan, while he calmly stood to the side. Wang Fugui forcefully shoved the thugs who were attacking his childhood friend, making them crash into each other and hit their heads. The stunned Zhao Tianlong asked Fugui why he was there. Hadn't he left the city? Everyone thought he would never come out. Wang Fugui, Ye Fan's childhood friend, asked who would protect his brother from scum like young Zhao if he wasn't there. Fugui grew up with Fan, and for all these 5 years, he protected his friend. The young man thought that he would definitely find a way to repay him. One of Zhao's friends told him that Wang Fugui was one of the strongest in the city, that he shouldn't mess with him, and that it was better to leave now. Furious, Tianlong said they were leaving their 2 companions lying on the ground at the feet of the powerful Fugui. Zhao clenched his teeth maimer. He was sure that Wang Fugui wouldn't be able to protect Ye Fan forever, and that sooner or later Long would get Su Yikshe. Fugui exclaimed that Fan was someone special. 7 charming beauties wanted to marry him at the same time. Who would have imagined that? He hugged his old friend and said that if Fan were in his right mind, he would literally pee himself from such unprecedented happiness. The guy almost suffocated in his friend's strong embrace. He indignantly wondered who Fugui thought he was. Wang watched Fan closely, mentally wondering what kind of expression he had on his face. This guy was starting to remind him of his old friend, and then it occurred to Fugui that his childhood friend had started to recover, and maybe his mind was coming back, at least partially. Van leaned in and tried to sense Fan's aura, picking up barely noticeable vibrations. He definitely hadn't experienced anything like this in the past 5 years. He said there was something wrong with Fan's aura. Had his friend really recovered? The young man sighed. Wang Fugui was just too clever. And then the childhood friends heard Su Yikshui's melodious voice, and she asked little Fan what he was doing there, since she had completely lost sight of him. He had left and disappeared while she was putting on her makeup. She had asked him to wait for her. The beautiful woman asked with concern if Fan was all right. Wang Fugui bowed to his 7th sister-in-law and told her not to worry, that he would protect Brother Fang, even at the cost of his own life. Su Yikshe smiled at Fugui, and he returned to the city. What a relief. Now she could be at ease about her little Fan. The host announced that today they had an honored guest, Xia Hao, who, they said, had come to close a deal with one of the families in the city. The young woman invited everyone present to welcome the esteemed guest, the president of a major pharmaceutical company, Miss Jia. Yikshe asked Fugui to look after Fan, as she needed to speak with Hao. Wang warned that the Zhao family was targeting the alliance. The president of the company, Jia Hao, took the stage and welcomed everyone to this luxurious business banquet. Zhao Tianlong was confident that once he closed that deal with the Xia family, Su Yishui would come crawling to him on her knees, begging for a favor. The host asked Xia, who had attended the banquet hosted by the Zhao family, if that meant he intended to form a partnership with them. Xihao smiled. The Zhao family was certainly a good choice, but the market in this city is very large, and his company is open to suggestions. Young Master Zhao's face twisted with anger, wondering what that old grouch meant by saying they were still open to other proposals. Yikshe exclaimed cheerfully that they had a chance. Ye Fan thought about it and recognized that person. Xia Hao, they had met before. Jia Hao's gaze suddenly stopped on Yifan. He recognized him too and was frozen in surprise. Of course, it was the same guy. The president of a major pharmaceutical company exclaimed in surprise, "Yes, this is the divine doctor. He's finally found us." Everyone present stepped aside in surprise, forming a corridor between the guest of honor and Yifan. No one understood anything. Jia Hao approached Van, exclaiming that he had finally found the divine doctor and that he could finally repay him for saving his life. Everyone whispered in surprise, "This fool knows Sha Hao? The Shu family hit the jackpot. Sha will definitely go into business with them." Young Zhao couldn't understand why President Sha was talking to that idiot. Was the lucrative contract about to slip through his family's fingers? Tianlong told President Sha that he must be mistaken, that he was just the village idiot. How could he possibly know anything about medicine? He didn't know a thing. Besides, Zhao Hao probably already knows about the Ye family situation. It's better not to get involved with them to avoid bringing misfortune upon yourself. The president of a major pharmaceutical company abruptly interrupted Zhao Tianlong, telling him he wasn't mistaken, that this man had saved him. 5 years ago, when Hall was on the brink of death, Ye Fan saved him. But what happened to this doctor? Why did he lose his mind? Shi Ixshe explained that her fiancé was hit by a car 5 years ago and still hasn't recovered. Hao sighed and said, "That explains everything." Young Master Ye was very strong, gifted in both martial arts and medicine, and apparently suffered some injuries after his encounter. Hao asked Mrs. Xu, since her family was in the pharmaceutical business, if they would be interested in partnering with the Xia family. Tianlong didn't give up. The Xu family had already been blacklisted by all their partners because of their connections with Ye Fan. Wasn't Hao afraid of the consequences? Hao said he didn't care about the consequences. If Fan hadn't saved him, the Xia family wouldn't even exist, and Yi Shui wouldn't have left Ye either. Jia Hao declared that the Shu family would be his family's partner in this city, and that anyone who opposed the Shu family here would also become an enemy of the Xia family. Tears streamed down Shu Yixie's face as she grasped the hand President Xia offered her. From that moment on, the Zhu family would be well protected financially. The crowd gathered there was amazed that, even now, the Ye family's foundation remained intact, and that Shu Yixie had been clever enough to bet on the winner, and only Zhao Tianlong was furious. That damn fool Yi fam. Why does he always ruin his plans? He has to kill him once and for all. Sha Hao winked at the beautiful Mrs. Zhu and suggested she properly thank her wonderful fiancé, Ye Fan. The girl's face turned red with embarrassment, and she glanced sideways at the boy nearby, who was considered an exceptional genius. To everyone's surprise, she hugged little Fan and told him she was very grateful to him. The young man was left bewildered. He hadn't expected that from Yuxie. Hugging the beautiful woman, he thought that if he could help her, then all his efforts would have been worth it. But it was still too soon to tell her the truth about himself. Yan Fan ran over to Xiao Hao, shouting that he was such a good person for helping his beloved wife, and that he was ready to give him a big hug. Hao sighed. It was all he could do. He couldn't provoke the big shots working behind the scenes too much. Ye Fan quietly replied to the company president that he had done a good job and that he wouldn't forget it. And Hao could finally relax. Jia Hao was left open-mouthed in surprise. So the divine doctor wasn't actually crazy, but what was the reason for this strange act? He grabbed the young man by the shoulders, trying to figure out if he was mistaken. And Hao asked the divine doctor in surprise what was going on there. Fan ran over to hug Hao again, shouting that his uncle was so sweet, so kind, so good, that he wanted to hug him even tighter. The man said quietly that they wanted to kill him, so it was better to keep a low profile for now and ask them not to tell anyone that he had recovered. Hao was astonished. Fan was 20 years old and thought strategically. If he sided with the Ye family, someday the Jia family would become powerful. He assured the young master Ye that he could rest assured that he, Xia Hao, would do everything in his power to help him and the Ye family. Outraged, Tianlong asked, "But what about the Zhao family? The Xiao family wanted to sign a contract with them. How is that possible?" Ye Fan shouted, pointing at Zhao, "This guy is really bad. He wants to steal the wife." Yikshui calmed him down. "She's not going anywhere." Zia Hao realized that this seemed to be his first order from the young master Ye, masterfully disguised as the fear of a poor madman. To everyone's surprise, Zhao Hao suddenly slapped Zhao Tianlong, who was standing right next to him, hard across the face. The president of the pharmaceutical company angrily asked Zhao how he dared tell him what to do and whether he had promised him something. A stunned Tianlong asked Hao why he had hit him for no reason, since the Zhao family was one of the most important in Cloud City. Jia let out a chuckle. Was it all for nothing? He deserved an even harsher lesson for trying to steal young Master Ye's wife. Hao called the guards and asked them to escort young Master Zhao out of the hall. He must have been drunk to behave so inappropriately. The guards took Tianlong by the hands and politely asked Zhao Tianlong to leave, but he became outraged and shouted that he wasn't drunk. Zhao Ho suggested that Zhu Yishai find a quieter place to talk calmly. The girl agreed and asked the president to go with her. Zhao's friends grabbed him, asking Brother Long how he was feeling, and the guards pushed him out of the banquet hall into the hallway. Tianlong was furious. Nothing had gone right with the contract, and he grumbled that all his failures were because of that idiot Ye Fan. He asked how the preparations were going, and one of the guys replied, "We're all in position. We can start anytime, as soon as the boss gives the word." Zhao Tianlong grinned maliciously. "Then we should go wait for that idiot. He'll make sure Ye Fan definitely doesn't make it home tonight." After the banquet ended, Zhu Yikshui explained all the details of the contract in Xia and then drove home together with little Fan. Fan was deep in thought. A lot had happened that night, but the main thing was that he had become himself again, which meant it was time to reflect on everything. Yikshui glanced at her partner from time to time. Now, he didn't seem like the crazy person she was used to. Before, she hadn't paid much attention to little Fan because she was her daughter-in-law, and she found it curious that he had always been so handsome. The boy felt the beautiful Yixei's gaze on him. Did she feel something too, or did she just notice it? He made a silly face and asked his wife why she was looking at him like that, saying it was because he was handsome. Embarrassed, she replied that she wasn't looking at him. Fan laughed. He kept looking and looking. Well, if Yixei's wife likes it, she can look at him all night. The girl blushed. She imagined telling little Fan that they were doing this to have a child, and he would ask what they were doing to him. Yixei blushed. Tonight, she had to spend her wedding night with little Fan and could only hope she wouldn't have to teach him anything. Ye Fan lightly touched the girl's leg and asked Yixui's wife what was wrong. Maybe something was wrong. And suddenly she blushed. The seventh daughter-in-law exclaimed, "Wow, she got hot so fast." She lost control of the car for a few seconds. The car suddenly swerved on the road, and a frightened Fan asked what was going on, if his dear wife had suddenly gotten sick. Yikshui didn't understand what was happening. As soon as she had intimate contact with Yi Fan, her whole body was engulfed in intense heat. The girl thought maybe that was the secret to his genius, and that she too would become stronger by having contact with that guy. Zhu Yikshui smiled. Xuan Yifei is such a foolish girl. He gave it to little Fan, to the 7 daughters-in-law, and now he is Yikshui. Fan hugged the girl and exclaimed, "Yes, he's all yours. You'll have a child together." Yikshui was certain their child would be beautiful. Suddenly, Fan realized they were about to walk into an ambush. He was sure it was the vengeful young Zhao who had set a trap for them on their way home. The boy smiled foolishly and told Yikshui he urgently needed to go to the bathroom. The girl smiled and said, "All right, just be quick." The young man shyly warned his wife that he really had to go, so he might be a little late, but there was nothing to worry about. Zhao Tianlong let out Tepo. That idiot Yi Fan got out of the car on his own and walked into the thick bushes. What luck! Young Master Zhao ordered his men to follow Fan. They were going to take care of the fool who was in the bushes. The others laughed. Yeah, the guys turned on their flashlights and went into the thicket to look for Yefan, but they couldn't find him anywhere, and Tianlong was cursing. He turned his head from side to side and asked where that weirdo Yefan was, how he could have disappeared in such a short time. Then Zhao saw a guy standing not too far away from him, with his back turned, dressed in a jester costume. Tianlong was sure he had found him. Zhao, putting his hand on the guy's shoulder, exclaimed, "Well, that's it, Yefan. You're finished." Tianlong was eager to finish off his enemy. The man turned around, surprised, and said he wasn't Yefan. Now, even Tianlong himself realized that he was facing a completely different person. Zhao cursed and asked the guy if he had seen anyone dressed in the same outfit pass by recently. The man confirmed that he had just seen that young man run by at full speed, faster than the wind, heading toward that rock, apparently fleeing. Zhao ordered, "First we'll finish off Ye Fan, then we'll kidnap Shu Yikui. He'll take out all the pent-up anger from today on that girl." Ye Fan smiled and watched his pursuers leave. There were only 5 of them, and they were all weaklings, so it would be very easy to take them out. Meanwhile, Tianlong and his companions searched the park at night looking for Yefan, but they couldn't find anyone. The man was nowhere to be found. The young master of the Zhao family cursed. "Oh shit, looks like that guy on the road tricked us and sent us here on purpose." Yifan protested to Zhao Tianlong. He hadn't lied to them, but that guy in the same suit had asked him to pass on a message to the pursuers. The son of the Zhao family had asked disdainfully, "What did that idiot say? What could that pathetic lunatic from the Ye family possibly have said?" The man explained that the guy had told him some really bad people were chasing him and his beautiful wife and had asked him to kill them all. Tianlong's face twisted, and, confused, he asked the man what he meant. He wasn't about to kill strangers. Instead of answering, Ye Fan shot across the park like lightning, instantly knocking out 3 of his 5 broad-shouldered pursuers. Young Zhao ducked down in fear, and he and another of his men asked the stranger in confusion who he was and where he got so much strength. Ye Fan asked Zhao Tianlong with a smile, did he really not recognize him? How surprising. He should study his opponents better. The stranger took off the mask from his face, and young Master Zhao recognized Yifan in horror, only now his eyes no longer showed madness. Tianlong was bewildered. Ye Fan had been with them the whole time. He was just wearing a disguise, but how could a fool pull that off? Suddenly, young Master Zhao realized everything. That bastard Ye Fan had fooled them all. They let their guard down and thought he was harmless. Tianlong, trembling, exclaimed, "So Fan was sane all along. He pretended so no one would mess with him. That's why no one touched him." Fan had been hiding for 5 years. He had probably surpassed the Grand Master level a long time ago. Tianlong tried to kidnap his wife. Now he was finished. Ye Fan asked young Master Zhao, but his crimes weren't limited to that, were they? That terrible accident was worth remembering. Fan pointed at the scarred man and said he remembered very clearly that 5 years ago, he, Zhao's companion, was the one driving that car. The young man, marked by scars, fell to his knees and begged Ye Fan to spare his life. He was only following the Zhao family's orders, but he knew he was wrong. Instead of answering, the young master of the Ye family struck the scarred young man on the head, causing blood to gush out and a flame to ignite instantly. Zhao Tianlong was in a panic. He watched his subordinate burn alive and was so terrified he couldn't utter a word. What power! Finally, he asked what kind of demonic art that was, how Fan could turn a person to ashes. Zhao wet his pants out of fear. Fan explained that his martial arts attribute is fire. And yes, he can reduce someone to ashes, so Tianlong probably really wants to give it a try. Of course, the most important thing here is the flame that burns inside the body. It's only thanks to that Fan can display such miraculous power. Zhao complained that he didn't want Fan to die, that it was all the fault of the big shot who had hired the Liu family from the capital, and that through them, they had put pressure on the Zhao family. Ye Fan wondered if the Liu family from the provincial capital was really behind the attacks against him and the rest of his family. Old Liu was Grandpa Changfeng's most loyal subordinate back in the day, and no one would have expected him to betray him. Zhao Qianlong added that the Liu family were just mercenaries too, and that he'd heard there was someone very important from Shangqing behind all of this. Fan grabbed Zhao by the neck and asked him who that big shot from Shangqing was. Tianlong squawked that he really didn't know. He knows that the Zhao, Wan, and Li families serve him in the city, and that the Liu family from the provincial capital usually passes orders down to them. Zhao Tianlong begged the young master of the Ye family not to kill him and swore he wouldn't tell anyone about him. Ye Fan asked the Zhao family heir with a smile if he could really keep this secret and not tell anyone what had happened there. Tianlong's eyes lit up with joy at having managed to fool Fan, and he quickly swore on anything that he would keep quiet about everything. But the young man struck his enemy with a flaming fist, instantly turning the deceitful Zhao Tianlong into a living, burning fire. With a grim expression, he asked the young master of the Zhao family to question him, but Tianlong's face was too deceitful and didn't inspire trust. So the Zhao, Wan, Li, and Liu families were involved in the destruction of his Ye clan. Well then, it looks like they'll have to be wiped out one by one. Suddenly, Yi Fan saw Yixue, the girl who was carefully walking through the park at night, calling out for little Fan, worried about where he might have gone. It was obvious that she was very scared. Still, she called out loudly for her young husband, asking where he was and why he was staying silent. Ye Fan remembered that his Yixue was very afraid of the dark and of mice, but even so, she was willing to go to a place like that for him, which made him happy. The young man smiled broadly and cheerfully told his wife Yixue that he was done and that everything would be fine now, that they could go home. The girl asked worriedly why he had been gone for so long. She already suspected that something had happened and wondered if her little Fan was okay. To distract Yixue from those thoughts, Fan exclaimed, "Oh, what a huge mouse!" And it's running right at the feet of his beautiful wife. His frightened Yixue shrieked and ran toward Fan, shouting, "Where is that mouse?" She hadn't noticed anything when she passed by here just a moment ago. Ye Fan picked the girl up in his arms and said with a smile that the mouse had already run away, and that his little wife Yixue smelled so good it made his head spin. Yixue exclaimed angrily. It seemed that little rascal Yi Fan had scared her on purpose so she would jump into his arms. The man protested, "No, he didn't do it on purpose. There are so many mice running around here. It's better to carry Yixue's wife to the car in my arms." Yan Fan picked the girl up in his arms and calmly carried her to the car. When he realized they were being watched from a parked car, the observer cursed. How did this kid manage to get away? Where is young Master Zhao? We need to find the whole group immediately. As soon as Fan and Yixue left, Tianlong's henchmen rushed into the park to look for young Master Zhao, but they only found 3 of his friends. Zhao Decheng, head of the Zhao clan and Tianlong's father, was furious and demanded to know what the disappearance of his young master meant. 2 living people, how could they just vanish without a trace? We have to keep searching. We're talking about the heir to the Zhao family. The fighter reported that 100 people had searched the area by the river several times. They had even checked the river itself, but the young man was nowhere to be found. That mysterious master was just too powerful. He took him out in a second. Only Tianmong and Scar were left. He definitely took them with him. De Chang wondered. Tianlong was his only son. Was someone targeting the Zhao family? Or was it someone from the Yen family who acted? He ordered everyone out and told them to keep searching and to report any clue to him immediately. Scar disappeared along with his son, too. Could this really be connected to what happened 5 years ago? Ye Fan should have died back then. Suddenly, Zhao Decheng was startled to see someone sitting quietly in his office without turning on the light, and the head of the family stopped in his tracks. Old Zhao sternly asked the man who he was and what he was doing in his house. It seemed like no one had invited him. Maybe he was a thief. The guy smiled and explained that he was the very man Zhao Decheng had tried to kill 5 years ago, but hadn't managed to finish off. The head of the Zhao family was stunned, just like Ye Fan, which meant he wasn't stupid. He'd just been pretending to fool all his enemies. The frightened Decheng opened his mouth to call for security. All the members of the Zhao family were terrified of this young genius from the Ye family. But the head of the Zhao clan didn't have time to call for help. His own fountain pen shot off the table like lightning toward him. The beloved Parker pinned the old man's hand to the door of the room. The owner of the house screamed in pain. Blood gushed from his hand. So, as not to alarm the servants, Ye Fan gagged the old man, and now they could talk about everything calmly. The guy said he had a few questions for Decheng, and that if he answered honestly, he wouldn't have to suffer too much. After making sure the old man understood, Yi Fan removed the gag from Decheng's mouth. The owner of the house stopped screaming and realized he would soon die. The old man asked, Tian Long had already died at Feng's hands, and he replied, so was it really necessary to leave dead the one who wanted his death? Zhao Decheng's eyes filled with tears. His body shook with sobs, and he murmured that they were only following orders. Fan barked, stop talking nonsense. In Cloud City, besides the Wang and Li families, who else serves the Lu family from the provincial capital? The old man replied that only these families did, but Lai also assigned people to constantly watch the Ye family, although it's unknown where they're hiding. Fan asked about the man from Shangsheng. Zhao replied that he had only seen him once, that he wore a mask, and everyone called him Young Master Zhao. The old man said their power is immense, that they can easily decide who gets appointed governor of Cloud City, and that Fan can't defeat them. Fan replied that that was none of the old man's business. Decheng said he knew something else, that there was another clue, but that there was no need to kill. Ye Fan frowned and demanded the old man speak, saying he would decide whether to spare his life or end him on the spot. Decheng stated that the enemies opposed the Ye family not only because they were too powerful, but also because they were looking for something. Yi Fan asked what kind of things they were looking for, since as far as he knew, his family didn't have anything particularly valuable. Zhao Decheng muttered that he really didn't know, that no one had ever told them such things, that they were just loyal followers. The man said that, in that case, the old man was no longer of any use, which meant he didn't have to tell anyone anything anymore. Ye Fan struck the head of the Zhao family with a fiery punch, incinerating the one who had wiped out his relatives and tried to kill him. The head of the Ye family was baffled. Overnight, Xiao father and son had disappeared. The second Xiao had suffered an accident, and the third had fallen out of a window. The city was buzzing with rumors. Apparently, someone wants to wipe out the Xiao family. I wonder which master was responsible. They did it simply magnificently. Lang Fong, the head of security for the Ye family, said they discovered that the Zhao family was involved in Ye Fan's accident, but now they've lost the trail. Chang Feng frowned. The investigation had to continue, since the story of how the Yi family had been attacked wasn't as simple as it seemed. The Su family left their young lover, Yixi, alone. After signing a lucrative partnership contract with the Jia company, Fan knew that the story of the Zhao family's downfall should have already spread, so this news surely would have gotten out as well. Suddenly, Fan heard the beautiful Su Yixi calling him. That day, they were going to spend their wedding night, and she was very shy. The young woman, blushing with embarrassment, asked her husband if she looked beautiful in that white silk wedding night dress. The girl thought that she would give herself to little Fan that night. There was no need to be shy. Fan didn't understand everything. She had to teach him. The man said with a smile that his sweet wife Jixa was the most beautiful. Jixue laughed happily. After all, Yi Fan was just so cute. Jixue blushed. But she still told her husband to let little Fan start because they needed to try to have a child. Fan found this really funny. Jixwei is so funny when she gets shy, so he cheerfully asked his wife what she wanted him to do now. The girl murmured in confusion, "Just sleep together, and then you'll give birth to a big, strong, and powerful child." The man asked with a smile, "Aren't we sleeping together right now?" Jixue said shyly, "To have a child, you can't just sleep like this." Jeffen kept acting silly. He put on an innocent face and asked. While Jixue fidgeted confusedly with her clothes, not knowing what to say, she, furious, pushed the boy onto the pillow, exclaiming that he was just a brat and couldn't be so slow-witted at his age. Jixue said that first they had to take off all their clothes, then she slowly unbuttoned Fan's shirt and began to take it off. The man automatically grabbed the soft white silk of her beautiful nightgown and gently pulled on it. He really wanted to take it off as quickly as possible. He asked with a smile why his wife wasn't taking off her clothes then. Jixu blushed as red as a lobster, mumbling what he was expecting. Fan exclaimed playfully, "This isn't fair. He wants his wife to take off her clothes." Jixue was about to faint from embarrassment. Finally, with determination, she took Fan's face in her thin, delicate hands and pulled him toward her. It was time to put an end to that argument. In a low voice, she told the boy to do the same as her and kissed him on the lips. And instantly, the room fell completely silent. Fan pulled off the shirt and the light silk slid from Jixue's supple body, revealing the seductive curves of the local beauty. Their bodies merged into a single impulse. And Jixu was surprised that little Fan, apparently, knew exactly what he needed to do now. The girl felt an unbearable heat. Her whole body was burning. Tears streamed down her cheeks as if she were in a sauna. Ye Fan's strong hands slid gently over his wife's burning body. His movements soothed her, giving her a sense of security. Fan felt that he would soon level up again. He had already reached the peak of a venerable master and was about to go even further. He told the girl in a low voice that the fever was a good thing. That Jigsu's level had probably changed too, and that would also be good for her. The guard said that, even though the young master had become a fool, his endurance hadn't decreased compared to before. Miss Jigsu was lucky. If the young master had come to his senses earlier, he and Miss Su would have been a perfect couple. Fang mentally thanked Jigsu for never abandoning the Ye family, and for helping him become much stronger than before. From now on, Su Yixue belonged to him, Ye Fan, and he wouldn't allow anyone to hurt or offend his sweet and gentle wife in any way. In the Shu family, the head of the family, Shu Jiang, and the eldest son, Dong, were talking about the recent events that had happened in the Xiao family. Dong, Ye Cheng Feng's adopted grandson, asked his father if he thought it was little Ye Fan who had dealt with the powerful Xiao family. The father yelled at his son to be quiet. How could he say something like that? Everyone knew that Ye Fan had lost his strength a long time ago. Dong apologized. He was just worried. The Ye family are their great benefactors. And if Ye Fan gets better, they can only be happy about it. Zhu Dong was worried that Yi Fan really knew the truth about what happened back then, 5 years ago, when the accident occurred. All these years, taking advantage of the fact that the Ye family had no one, the Zhu family finally managed to seize the Ye family's assets. Shu Jiang slapped his son to make him be quiet. He was old enough to know not to say too much. Han found out about everything. They left a letter in Xiao's office. Di Chang took a woman from the Grand Master, and that man took revenge. Shu Dongzhe rubbed his bruised cheek resentfully and asked his father who this Grand Master was. Maybe his name was on the list. The satisfied head of the Shu family told his eldest son that the letter said the Avenger's name was Fang Ye and that he didn't seem to be from around here. Yi Cheng Feng's adopted son laughed mischievously. This Avenger showed up at just the right time. I definitely have to meet him. Don was very surprised. He had never heard that name before. His father interrupted him. The main thing is that this guy really has skills. The eldest son asked his father in surprise what he meant, wondering if some brilliant idea had already popped into his cunning mind. Shang said, "We must find this Mr. Fan." Our Shu family has an interesting matter we want to entrust to him. Dong was stunned. Did his father really want to hire a craftsman to get rid of Ye Fan and Old Man Ye so that the Ye family's property would become theirs? Inspired by this prospect, Shudong exclaimed that he would go right now and do everything he could. He would definitely find that master. Old Shu Zhang's eyes sparkled. In his mind, he told Ye Fan that his miserable life was coming to an end, that there was no escape for him anymore. After a stormy and hot night, Ye Fan and his wife slept soundly. The man held his sweet and beautiful wife tightly, pulling her close to him. The young couple was awakened by persistent knocking at the door. It was already morning and time to get up, but no one dared to enter the room. Yikshe was the first to wake up and asked what was going on, and someone from behind the door replied that someone had come to see young Master Ye. The girl cried out in surprise. Fan's strong hand grabbed her by the shoulder, and her young husband persistently pulled her toward him. He cheerfully suggested to his beloved wife that they stay in bed a little longer, but Jixei told Fan to stop fooling around. Jixwei asked out loud who had come to see her husband. This was quite strange, since normally no one came to visit Ye Fan. A voice answered from behind the door. The young Xuan Yufei had arrived. Jixwei frowned, wondering what that girl was doing there. The girl was indignant. She grabbed Fan by the cheek and pulled. He exclaimed that it hurt, saying his beloved wife was punishing him. Jixwei snorted in annoyance and told Fan that his ex-fiancée was there, though it wasn't clear why she had come back. Ye Fan was amused. It seemed that his wife Jixwei was jealous. He hugged her and kissed her hard. The girl said she wasn't jealous at all. The man suggested that if Jixu was worried, they could go see Xuan Yufei together. And the young wife agreed. She convinced herself that she was doing it to protect Ye Fan, not because she was worried or jealous, so they got dressed and went out together. In the courtyard of the large and cozy Ye family mansion stood Xuan Yufei, Ye Fan's ex-fiancé and childhood friend, looking very embarrassed. When she saw Fan and Jigsu together, the girl was left confused. They really looked like a real couple. And a very good-looking and happy one at that. Jigsu asked Yufei. She had already broken off the engagement, so why had she come now? Did she want to make fun of her ex-fiancé again? Yufei told Fan that she had come to apologize to him. Yesterday, it wasn't her decision to end the relationship. Her second uncle forced her to do it. Ye Fan knew that Xuan Yufei was actually very gentle. With a weak character and easy to manipulate, maybe her uncle had forced her to break off the engagement. Suddenly, a luxury car stopped by the side of the road. The man called out to Yufei. She turned around in surprise, wondering where this annoying guy had come from. Li Youngyang, the eldest young master of the Li family, got out of the car holding a bouquet of flowers and said he had been looking for Yufei. The girl was confused by the presence of this man, who was dragging her toward the car since they had agreed to go to the movies together that day. Xuan Yufei angrily asked the suitor who had told him she was there. It was probably her uncle. Fang watched the scene in silence. Fang clenched his fists. He had actually been planning to forgive Yufei, but it seemed she had chosen the Li family, which meant she had become his enemy. Jixui noticed that Fang was very uneasy. He clenched his fists tightly and tensed up. But she interpreted everything completely differently, in her own way. The young wife thought that seeing her ex-fiancé with another man was tough, and little Ye Fan must be heartbroken. She shouted at Xuan Yufei, "Didn't you say you came to apologize?" But it looks like you came to show off your new boyfriend. Su Yiksha declared that she was now Ye Fan's wife, so his exes should stop bothering her husband. She wouldn't allow his exes to bother him. Yikshe walked determinedly over to there. She took his face in her hands and pulled him toward her with authority. The guy was even a little confused. She pressed her lips to his, kissing her young and incredibly handsome husband tenderly and for a long time, making a show of it. Tears streamed down Xuan Yufei's face, and she murmured softly, "So you two were already together. But how did it all happen so fast?" Su Yikshe smiled triumphantly. showing that this man belonged to her now and she wasn't going to hand him over to his ex. Jixwei calmly responded to Yufe. That's right. If you understand the situation, then it'd be best for you to leave quickly and not come back. Yifan told Xuan Yufei with a smile that since she had refused to become his wife, it didn't matter. He had another wife now. And this new wife of his is much more beautiful than his previous unfaithful wife, and she's just one of 7. So he's not upset. The ex-girlfriend looked reluctant in front of this beautiful couple and quietly said that she understood everything as long as he was happy. That was the most important thing. Yufei suddenly blurted out that she wished Fan happiness and ran off, trying to hold back the tears of despair and anger that were choking her. Li Yunyang tried to stop the girl, but she ignored him and tried to get away as quickly as possible. Fang and Jigsu stood on the spacious porch of the big house and silently watched the strange scene without getting involved at all. Li's eldest son shouted at Yufei to wait for him, but the girl pushed the flowers aside and snapped at Li to leave her alone. Li Yangyang ran after Xuan Yufei, trying to stop Fang's ex-fiancé, but she kept walking without even looking at him. Yifan said quietly after his friend Yufei walked away, "Some mistakes. Once they're made, they can never be fixed." A scandal broke out at the Liu family's residence in the provincial capital. Liu Ran shouted, "Has Sha Hao really gone completely crazy? Could it be that he really decided to side with the Ye family and even sign a partnership agreement with them and the Su family?" One of the elders reported to the patriarch that President Jia Ha was doing this to thank Ye Fan for saving his life. Liu Ran grunted. No matter what his reason was, to set an example and warn the others, they had to destroy the Su family. The Cao family has already been destroyed, but there are still the Li and Wang families. Let them join forces and wipe out the Su family, and Su Yikshe will be trampled until there's nothing left of her. The head of the Liu clan smiled maliciously. Let's see who else dares to side with that damned Ye family after this defeat. Wang Fuji assured his daughter-in-law that she didn't need to worry, that he would take good care of Brother Fan and that everything would be fine. Jigsaw told little Fan to behave and go have fun with Fuji, and that she would pick him up after work. Ye Fan shouted, calling for Jigsaw, his beloved wife, to come pick him up. Fuji reassured the girl, telling her that everything would be fine between them. Soon, they had gotten quite far from the Yi family home, and throughout the whole day, Yifan's old childhood friend remained silent, lost in thought. Finally, Fuji winked mischievously at his friend and said, "She's out of sight now, Brother Fang. You can stop pretending now." The strong man said he immediately realized that Fang was still the same as always. The trick at the banquet where he pretended to be a pig to eat the tiger was brilliant. And the destruction of the Zhao family, that was Fang's doing too. His level have gone up again, hasn't it? There's no need to pretend in front of him. Wang Fuji is the guy Fang grew up with. He's very perceptive. But the Yi family's enemies are everywhere, and Fuji can't get involved in this. Yi Fang asked Brother Wang if he liked his outfit and if he could give it to him as a gift. Fuji objected, saying he was talking about pretending. Fuji sighed. If you don't want to tell me anything, you don't have to. Anyway, it's completely obvious that you're not crazy anymore. Ever since Brother Fan had gone back to his old self, they would go to a place they used to visit together, so Fan could rediscover his taste for food. Fan was puzzled about where he wanted to take him. What other place did we used to go to? Was it really the brothels again? But now Yi Fan is a married man and can't go to those places. Even though we had a great time there and there were lots of pretty girls. Wang Fuji smiled cheerfully and said that Fang would find out everything once they got there. It was simply a wonderful and fun place. Soon they found themselves near a huge industrial building. Day Fan knew that place very well, but it had been a long time since he'd been there. Fuji asked his friend if he remembered that place. Fan used to bring him there all the time to buy interesting things. This is the black market, here on the 3rd underground level. It's the biggest black market in Yuncheng, Cloud City. Here you can find all kinds of rare and valuable items. As long as you can pay the right price, there's nothing you can't buy. Fan clapped happily. Shopping, shopping. It's time to look for something useful in the underground black market. Budgie smiled. Brother Fang, do you still remember how it was? It seems like he really came to his senses. He's just hiding it from everyone. Fugui might have seemed like a dumb jock, but he was actually smart. Jethan was sure that he had realized what his childhood friend had taught him. They walked slowly along the long rows of merchants. There were lots of different items, but it was hard to find anything valuable right away. Juan Fugi offered his friend to pick out whatever he wanted. He was even willing to pay, but Fan didn't see anything good or valuable there. Looks like I'll have to use this secret technique Fan learned during the last 5 years of cultivation. The Demon Days. The demonic gaze pierces through the surface and reveals the true essence, perfect for finding valuable things. Suddenly, Jeffin spotted an incredibly valuable item at one of the counters, a rare vitality pill hidden beneath a layer of stone. It helps you reach the Grand Master level. Even 1 billion might not be enough to guarantee you could buy it. 5 years ago, Brother Wang was about to reach the Grand Master level, but he still hadn't achieved it. This strength pill will help him. Jeffin picked up the black stone and said it would be perfect to take home and let the kitten play with it. The merchant said that if he bought any other stone, he'd throw this one in for free. In front of him lay various shiny minerals. The vendor let out a little chuckle to himself. They used this paving stone to prop up the table legs. Just what you need to fool this rich idiot. Yifan said cheerfully, "All right, wrap them both up." And he turned to Brother Wang and told him to pay this kind uncle. Fuji was puzzled. That blue one could be bought, but Fan should forget about that other one. His daughter-in-law would get mad if he brought it home. Yefan asked his friend if he hadn't promised to pay or if he had lied. Fuji smiled. How could he dare? Well, he'll pay now. That's better. Fan discreetly placed a stone in his friend's large palm and said that black stone was for him. Fan overheard the conversation. Apparently, the Ye family's enemy had hired a powerful master to completely destroy the Ye family. The man turned in surprise toward the chatty passersby. Were the enemies of the Ye family still restless? They needed to be more careful. Fan was very attentive, trying to catch every word from those well-informed people who were speaking there with a certain unease. One of the speakers lamented what was happening. The Yi family had achieved a lot in their time. Now they would all be slaughtered like sheep. The man was bewildered. Were the enemies really planning to act so quickly? It seemed like someone was in a hurry to wipe out the Ye family. But now that Yi Fan has returned, the enemies don't stand a chance. Although it's still wise to be careful and not show up. Fuji noticed that his friend had frozen and asked Fan what had happened. If he had seen someone or heard something. Ye Fan smiled cheerfully and exclaimed, "Quick, Brother Wang, you have to try this," and handed his friend a round black stone. Wang Fuji protested, "It was a stone, not a candy. I can't eat it." Fang asked in surprise, why couldn't Brother Wang eat it? Fang insisted that Fuji had to eat it, and despite his friend's resistance, he almost forced the black stone into his mouth. Yui cursed. The stone broke apart. Oh my god, there was a vitality pill inside. But how did Yefan know? With this pill, the chance of reaching the Grand Master level increases by 70%, and the chance of reaching the Venerable level by 50%. But when this precious pill was hidden inside the stone, Yifan just yawned. He was so bored that he felt like eating something tasty. Then Ye Fan's phone rang. He picked it up and asked who it was, and Wang Fuji realized that his friend had completely recovered. It was Jia Hao calling. Fan understood. He knew his situation. If Jia Hao wanted to introduce him to someone, it had to be something really important. Half an hour later, Ye Fan, Wang Fuji, and Sha Hao were sitting in the restaurant at the Royal Grand Hotel. Hao introduced his companions to young Ye. These two are members of the Shaw family. This is Lai Hu. If you need help with matters that are better kept secret, you can go to him. Li Hua, the godfather of the Yuncheng Ampa, paid his respects to young Master Ye. From now on, your orders will be law for Li Hu. This is Song Chen, the governor of Yuncheng. He is very well versed in official matters. Qian bowed, promising Fan all the help he could offer. Ye Fan laughed and told Uncle Sha that Fuji really did eat a stone that day, and both of them burst out laughing, leaving house companions completely baffled. Yi Fan has become a fool, but Xiao Hao still treats him with respect. It's not that simple. It seems like the Ye family needs to be reevaluated. Fuji told Jia Hao that his brother still hadn't fully recovered, but he remembered everything, and that if he needed help, he would turn to those gentlemen. Li Hua reported that things were going badly. A subordinate sent a message. Wu Lalan's entire gang went on high alert. It looked like they were searching for Miss Yikshe. Ye Fan's face darkened. He clenched his fist and crushed the bowl. His aura flared with fury, scattering everyone around him. Jia Hao and Wang Fuji looked at the enraged Ye Fan in surprise. None of them had ever seen such a terrifying power before. Li Hu and Song Shen stared wide-eyed at the young man, whom just a moment ago they had thought was a brainless fool with no strength at all. The guy's eyes burned with rage. Those monsters, how dare they lay a hand on his woman? None of them will survive today. Fuji realized that, after hearing the news, his friend had stopped pretending. That overwhelming aura was simply monstrously strong. Yafan suddenly regained his composure and went back to acting ridiculous, grabbing two sticks and shouting that he was going to save his wife and get revenge. Shah gave the order to his men for everyone to move out, to protect Mrs. Su Jigsui at all costs, and the Su family became their ally. Meanwhile, 3 cars full of bandits were speeding after Jigsu's car and brazenly rammed Su's car, causing an accident. The driver informed the lady that the bandits were chasing them too fast, that they couldn't get away, and that the guards had their weapons ready. Su Jigsaw ordered the driver to keep going. They had to try to get away from them. The main thing was to get home, and then they could defend themselves. The girl said she'd rather die than fall into the hands of those monsters and let them humiliate her. She wouldn't become their plaything. Suddenly, one of the bandits' cars caught up to Su's car and rammed it against the front fender. The car was sent skidding to the side and the driver cursed. Grit in his teeth, he cussed. These idiots are ramming the car. What can we do? They have a considerable numerical advantage and their car is faster. The driver, Jigsu, noticing the alley, turned in that direction, hoping to escape their pursuers and lose them in the narrow streets. Suddenly, Jigsu's car braked sharply and came to a stop, and she didn't immediately understand what was happening, why they weren't moving forward. The situation is serious. It's a dead end. There's a narrow passage to one side, but a car can't fit through it. The guards suggested to the lady that she should run and that they would protect her. The driver said there were too many bandits, that it was dangerous for Jigsway, that the Su family had done a lot for them, and now it was their turn to return the favor. The driver hurried. Faster. Be careful, that's all. Su Jigsway promised to send people to help. The guard hurried the lady along. Suddenly, Jigs heard an unpleasant crunching sound. One of the bandits struck her guard with a blade. Blood splattered and the guy fell to the ground. The bandits, armed with large combat knives, laughed. Did the beauty really think she could escape from them? No way. Now she was theirs. Su Yikshe, bloodied and with her dress torn, looked bravely at the bandits, wondering where she could get a combat weapon. One of the pursuers sneered and reached his dirty, hooked fingers out toward her. Jigsu jumped to the side. The driver shouted at the bandit to stay away from the lady. No one dared to touch the beautiful daughter of the head of the Su family. Then he heard the voice of the gang leader behind him. He was surprised and asked what they were doing there. Why hadn't they finished yet? Bula Olun realized there were only 3 left. It was time to finish them off, and that girl too. So the leader ordered everyone to attack together. The bandits quickly overpowered Su Yixui's guards, who were still trying to resist and protect their young mistress. The gang leader advised Su Yixui to stop resisting and told her that if she entertained him a little, she would die quickly and without much pain. One of the bandits reminded the boss that they had been ordered to kill that girl, to which the leader replied that humiliating and torturing Siyeksu was a great achievement. The girl grabbed the knife and shouted at them not to come any closer. She would rather die than let them lay a finger on her. The bandit growled. The damn woman doesn't appreciate what's being offered to her. He offered the boss to help hold her down for the duration of their fun. The frightened Yikshe brandished her knife and instantly cut off both hands of the insolent man who had reached out toward her. All the bandits were stunned. The insolent man who had lost his R's screamed in pain and stammered as he asked her if she knew martial arts. They hadn't been warned about that. Sujitsu was baffled by the sudden increase in her speed and strength. This had definitely never happened to her before. Ever since she merged with Fan, her body had been filled with warm currents. Could this really improve her martial arts cultivation? The girl thought that if she had become this strong, then Fan must be even stronger. Was he just pretending to be a fool? The rest of the thugs weren't in a hurry to attack. No one wanted to lose an arm or a leg, or maybe even their head. The gang leader ordered them not to waste any time, that they had to kill her immediately before things got even more complicated, and before anyone unknown could come to her aid. Obeying the boss's order, the bandits started moving toward the brave Mrs. Su, who shouted at them not to come any closer. One of Wu Laolun's gang members snatched the combat knife out of the girl's hands. She screamed. The weapon spun and flew off to the side. The killers kept getting closer, their eyes gleaming with malice. In just a few more seconds, they would end the beautiful Jigsu's life with their knives. Tears welled up from the eyes of the young lady Su as she mentally bid farewell to her mysterious and passionate young husband, Yi Fan. With a mischievous grin, one of the bandits decided to strike first at the renowned beauty, and his sword was already coming down on Su. And then everyone heard Ye Fan's voice as he shouted to his wife not to be afraid, that her husband had come to save his beloved and beautiful Yikshe. Before anyone could react, Fan scattered the criminals, killing some of them so they wouldn't dare try to kill his beautiful wife. Su Yikshe closed her eyes in terror and screamed. She was already prepared to die and never expected that Fang could stand up to them. The guy stood there, shielding the frightened girl with his body, his eyes blazing with anger. All the bandits near Yiksha were already dead. He hugged his wife and asked if she was okay. He was scared to death for her. Yikshe asked the little Fan in surprise if he was asleep. The girl asked with a smile, Yi Fan has recovered. Yeah, that's great. That means the Ya family is safe. Everything will be just fine now. Yi Fan apologized to Yikshe in his mind, but he still couldn't tell her the whole truth. First, he had to deal with the enemies of their families. He opened his eyes in surprise and asked Jixue's wife what she was talking about. What recovery? It seems like he hadn't been sick at all. The gang leader ordered the remaining thugs to attack quickly and finish off the two foolish youngsters. The man frowned and looked at Wu Laolun. He had to interrupt him without arousing the suspicions of his clever wife. He would have to play along. Fan grabbed the knife that was at his feet and lunged at the gang leader. Now was not the time to show his full strength. The man exclaimed, "Those bad guys still dare to harass your sweet wife? They're all terrible people who deserve to die." With these words, Ye Fan delivered a crushing blow to the powerful Wu Laolun, who staggered back in horror, wondering where that fool had gotten such strength. The gang leader's eyes widened in fear. That kid's blow shattered his famous sword. This couldn't be happening. Ye Fan's eyes sparkled. He realized that Wu Laolin had figured everything out, which meant he had to die right then and there, taking the secret with him. The guy grabbed the tall gang leader and started spinning him in the air, shouting that bad people should suffer for their evil deeds. Fan hurled Wu Laolun onto the pavement with all his strength, saying, "This is what happens to those who mistreat my wife." And the gang leader's blood gushed out in spurts. The few remaining members of the gang were paralyzed with horror. Almost all their fighters had been killed. The leader had been reduced to a shapeless mass. Su Yikshe watched Fan's rampage with tears in her eyes. Even she was terrified by the cruelty of her young husband. Wang Fuqi and Li Hui showed up in the alley and asked Brother Fang not to run so fast. They barely dared to follow him. When they saw Wu Laolun's bloody corpse, Fan's friends cursed, saying, "What the hell is going on here? They've killed the whole gang." Fugui was baffled. Had Brother Fang already revealed the truth to his daughter-in-law? That couldn't be true. It seemed he still wasn't planning to do it yet. Yekshui sobbed, "It's all my fault. Fan didn't get his memory back. He just unleashed his fierce instincts to protect me." Fugi was delighted. Unbelievable. Well played, Brother Fang. Even his own wife thought he was still crazy. Fan said to his friend in his mind, "Can you stop chatting for even a second? Help me out here. I can't handle this on my own right now." Fugi grabbed the surviving bandit, shook him, and shouted, "Tell me, who ordered the hunt for my daughter-in-law?" Fan smiled and said, "That's better. It was young Master Wang from the Wang family who ordered Wu Lelong to chase after Su Yikshe, humiliate her terribly, and then kill her." Yifan frowned. The Wang family, the ones working for the Liu family from the provincial capital, it's time to deal with them. So the Liu family from the capital made another move to stop the Jia family's interference and ultimately destroy the Ye family. Yifan clenched his fists. It seemed that taking out the Zhao family wasn't enough. There were still some of the Liu family's lackeys left in Cloud City. Suddenly, Fan saw that Yikshui was staggering, so he picked her up in his arms and asked if she was okay. The girl was very anxious and weak. She asked Fan to save Captain Zhao and the rest of his guards, who had suffered a lot while protecting her from a crowd of bandits. Ye Fan told Fugui to take the guards to the hospital immediately. The strong man said he understood everything and that they would soon be seen by the doctors. Yikshe's men received medical attention shortly after. They were all injured but alive, and their lives were no longer in danger. Yi Fan entered the room of his wife's chief of security, Zhao Datu. The man was completely bandaged, and the young man took his pulse. When he woke up, Captain Zhao first asked what had happened to Mrs. Su Yikshui and whether she had managed to escape from Wu Laolun's gang. Fan reassured him. Yikshui was fine, just a little shaken. The chief of security let out a sigh of relief. That was good. Then the captain realized that young Master Ye looked completely different. He wasn't the same person they had gotten used to seeing over the past few years. Datu exclaimed that young Master Yen was no longer crazy. He had once again become the greatest genius and grand master of martial arts. Fan replied that it was true. He had already recovered, but only a few people knew about it, and he hoped Datu could keep it a secret. The captain jumped to his feet and swore to take that secret to the grave. Fan said there was no need for such formalities. Datu was still injured. The captain is loyal, and that's exactly what Fan needs, a trustworthy person to help him protect Yikshe. As a reward, Fan promised to help Captain Zhao embark on the path of martial arts and become much stronger than he was now. Flames danced around Yi Fan as he touched Chief of Security Shu Yix's chest with his fingers, infusing him with power. Zhao Data shouted loudly. It was so hot. The bandages and dressings flew off his body. His muscles grew and became incredibly strong, and fire shone in his eyes. When it was all over, the captain stared wide-eyed at Mr. Yi, astonished, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Then Datu looked at his hands in surprise. And where were the bandages? He didn't feel any pain. How was that possible? All his wounds had already healed. How could that be? Fan said, Datu has entered the path of martial arts. He is no longer an ordinary person. From now on in Sha, he will be considered an elite among the people. The captain fell to his knees, thanking young Master Yi, and swore to protect Lady Yikshe, even at the cost of his own life. Fan stated that these pills will strengthen your body and improve your development, allowing you to perform your duties well and bringing you many rewards. Xu Dong complained to his father. The Zhao family was suddenly destroyed, and in a single night, we lost our biggest business partner. The man feared that without the support of the Zhao family, they wouldn't be able to face the Ye family on their own. Their Zhu family was just too weak. The executives of the corporation are all staunch supporters of Ye Changfeng, and his allies still lack influence within the Ye family. There's only one way out: hire someone to go straight to Changfeng's house and kill that old bastard and that stupid fan. Xu Dong heard that there was a great master in Yinchang named Fan Ye. If the price was right, he would definitely take the job. The father asked if Dong was sure this wouldn't give them away. If they got into trouble, the consequences would be catastrophic. Dong reassured his father, telling him that Fan Ye had been operating in secret for many years, had no connection to the Xu family, and that young Xu had already sent a message. Yifan saw that the fish had taken the bait. The robot informed Master Fan Ye that he had a new assignment. A gentleman wanted to hire him. The guy was surprised that someone had contacted him so quickly. Well, let's see what this new job is about. He opened the message. After reading the message, Fan was stunned. The client wanted to kill him, Ye Fan, and his grandfather. Who would dare to do something like that? The conditions of the job were as follows. The client had to meet with the assassin in person and witness the victim's deaths with his own eyes. Then the payment would be made. Accept the mission at midnight. Meet under the central bridge in Cloud City. The reward for completing the job is 1 billion. Ye Fam let out a chuckle. Well, now it's time to return the favor. The guy moved forward with determination. He knew where to look for enemies. In one of the city's trendiest nightclubs, the music was blasting at full volume. Everything sparkled with neon lights and top-shelf liquor flowed like a river. Wang Chao, the eldest young master of the Wang family, was relaxing, surrounded by voluptuous beauties in this very family-owned club. The servant reported to Mr. Wang that Wu Lao Lun had failed to kill Xu Yiksha, that his entire squad had been wiped out, and that Wu Lao Lun himself had died on the spot. Wang Chao roared in anger. So, Wu Lao Lun was God. Useless idiot. With so many people, they still couldn't take down a single woman. The servant added, it seems that Ye Fan intervened and killed Wu Lao Lun. Wang Chao snorted. There's no need to worry about that fool anymore. He ordered that the pressure on the Xu family continue. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain to the people from the provincial capital what kind of mess they were in. Suddenly, a young man appeared at the door of Wang Chao's office. The club owner and his servant looked at the visitor with questioning expressions. Chao shouted at the late-night visitor, "Who the hell are you? Who let you in? Where are all the security guards? Why is everyone hanging around here?" The man calmly told young Master Wang that he had come to offer his services in exchange for a lot of money. Wang asked where all the people outside were and told him to throw that idiot out of here. How dare he come here uninvited? The guest smiled and asked if Cha was referring to those guys, but there weren't any left. He had killed them all, so they were useless now. Wang Chao jumped up from his seat. What was going on here? Who was this guy? What did he want? The others also cautiously stepped back. The intruder smiled. There was no need to be too afraid. He was there to help young Master Wang get rid of the Zhu family. Sitting down on young Master Wang's sofa, the man introduced himself. Maybe they'd heard of him recently. His name was Fan Ya. Wang Chao exclaimed, "Master Fan, it would be wonderful if you agreed to help. Just tell me the price, whatever you want." The guy replied that it would only cost them 2 billion, and he would completely wipe out the Su family from the face of the earth, leaving no one alive. Wang was stunned. 2 billion? The total assets of the Wang family are barely 10 billion. We don't have that much cash on hand. The guest frowned. You don't have 2 billion, and you want me to help you destroy the Su family? You're insulting the Grand Master. Wang thought, Lu promised that if we destroyed the Su family, their assets would be transferred to the Wang family. So 2 billion wouldn't be a problem. But what if the Lu family didn't keep their promise? Or what if this Fan Ye destroyed the Wang family just like he destroyed the Zhao family? Chow said that the Wang family was honored to receive the help of a master like him and that he would return home immediately to collect the necessary amount. Instead of a reply, a plastic stick whistled past Chow's ear, but its force was like that of a steel spear, and Wang shuddered. The young master cursed and fell to the ground trembling. He told the master that he was wrong to try to escape from there. The formidable grandmaster said in a conciliatory tone, "That's better. At least Wang Chao understands his mistake." While stirring the ice in his wine glass with a straw, Fan Ye calmly told the club owner that he had 10 minutes to collect the money. The frightened young Wang immediately called his father, begging him, "Dad, transfer me the money quickly. 2 billion. No, I didn't smoke cannabis." Chow explained to the head of the family that he had hired Fan Ye, the grandmaster, that there was no need to ask unnecessary questions, and that he just needed to transfer the money. Ye Fan thought that if Wang Chao dared to attack his wife Yixue, how could he possibly let that bastard, the drug-addicted young Wang, go after that? Chao transferred the money to the account specified by the master with trembling hands, and after confirming the transfer, Wang asked if he could leave. The guest asked why he was in such a hurry. Wang's case was ever. Now it was time to talk about the other matter, which was the real reason for his visit. Wang Chao asked in confusion what the master meant. He answered himself, saying that he had come to offer his services as a mercenary. The guy took off his mask and explained, "Of course, I'm here to collect the debt for your attempt to kill my wife." Everyone recognized Yifan. Young Wang fell to the ground in fear, stammering, "Fan Ye, Ye Fan, it was you." "So you were pretending this whole time? Playing dumb?" Wang was stung. 5 years ago, Yifan was at the peak of being a grandmaster. Now he's even stronger. And they dare to attack his wife? This is the end. He begged Mr. Yi to forgive him. He said he was just following someone else's orders, and from now on, he would work for the Ye family like an ox or a horse. Ye Fan replied indifferently that it wasn't necessary, but there was something he wanted to borrow from Wang Chao. Bowing, young Wang said that it was exactly Fan whom he wanted to please, and that he was willing to lend him anything. No, that he would gladly give him everything. Fan said with a smile, "Well, since young Master Wang is so incredibly generous, then let him give his life for the people ye killed." He lifted Chao off the ground and both of them were engulfed in flames. Wang's eyes opened wide, filled with horror and pain. The fire burned him from the inside, incinerating out. Wang called out to Lu, "That damn Ye Fan pretended to be a fool and tricked everyone." But even if Chao died, he wouldn't let Fan get away with it. The head of the Lu clan, Lu Ring, could hear everything that was happening. It was his number that Wang Chao dialed as he was dying to find out everything about Ye Fan. Fan realized this, and his eyes flashed. What a little bastard. Even at a time like this, he was trying to inform the enemies about what was happening. The guy shook Chao by knocking the phone out of his hands. Fan growled, "Even on the brink of death, you still dare to kick and cause trouble?" Young Master Wang tried to justify himself, but Fan ignored him. The flames grew stronger, and the club owner turned into a living torch. Everyone watched in horror as their formidable master writhed in pain in his death throes, his body burning from the inside and emitting light. Yi Fan clenched his fist, and nothing was left to young Master Wang but ashes. The others scattered in all directions. After finishing with Chao, Ye Fan told his subordinates that now it was their turn to answer for the bad deeds and harm they had caused. In Wang Chao's empty office, Ye Fan saw the club owner's cell phone slip from his hands and fall to the floor, and immediately came up with a plan. Fan picked up Chao's phone. How lucky that idiot was to have dropped it. Now he could find out a lot of things and maybe even do something useful. The guy found the contact information for the head of the Wang family and sent him an alarming message in his son's name. Fan smiled. All he could do was watch. After sending the message, Ye Fan threw the dead enemy's phone to the ground, and the screen shattered on impact. Wang Zhang, Chao's father, received a message. "Dad, I've been kidnapped." Come to the central bridge in Yenchang at midnight. Save me. Chong was furious at whoever dared to kidnap his son and ordered the Wang family members to immediately set up an ambush at the central bridge. The head of the powerful Wang family was anxious to find out who had dared to kidnap his only son and heir to his corporation. In the morning, Yifan went to the hospital where Fu Gui and his bodyguards had taken her, and the doctors kept Mrs. Su admitted to the clinic overnight. The girl woke up and saw little Fan by her side. He said to her gently, "Yixue, my wife, you've finally woken up." He hugged her tightly. Thank God she was okay. Those villains didn't have time to hurt her. They only managed to scare her a lot. Yikshay remembered the day before and shuddered, and her little Fan had saved her and killed almost all the bandits without using any weapons. The young woman shuddered as she remembered that massacre. Her husband had shown incredible strength and fury the day before, protecting her from death. At that moment, Yifan looked incredibly handsome and very calm. Even she thought he had recovered and was back to being himself. Fan smiled. The doctor said that Yikshu was just very tired, that she needed to rest a bit, and that soon she could go home. The girl gently patted her husband's cheek and told him she still couldn't go home yet. She still had a lot of work to do. Sue's company is getting ready to launch a new medication, and there's still a lot left to do. Once everything is ready, Yikshay will come back. The girl looked at the news on her phone with worry, her mouth open in surprise. This can't be happening. They stole the formula. A competing company has already launched a new medication today. How is that possible? They had been working on this for such a long time. Ji Hao came into the room and reported that they had also received the news and that the message had already spread across all the TV channels. Hao showed the girl a broadcast of the launch of the latest cosmetic product, which was presented by Li Yunyang. He said that Li's group had been meticulously researching and developing the beauty drug for many years. Yikshay was on the verge of tears, feeling shameless. This is the result of sub-companies' hard work, and these bastards just stole the development. For many years, our Su family invested almost all of its resources into developing this formula, since they had high hopes for this drug. Hao stated that recently, many partners have stopped working with Su's company due to pressure, so the family is going through a very tough time. Without a flagship product to break the deadlock, the Su group might not survive much longer. Urgent action needs to be taken. Su Yikshay told President Xia that she needed to urgently return to the company and asked him to take care of Ye Fan for her. Fan asked how. So it's just about the formula for a beauty pill? You should have told me earlier. He knows a lot of formulas like that. Hao smiled. But would Mrs. Su really believe something like that? Fan realized that President Xia was right. In the eyes of others, he was just a fool now. Then the guy realized that Yulin Long had said he would invite the famous great doctor of Shaw, Lei Qiangke, to treat him. Fan, isn't Lei Qiangque the ultimate guarantee? Xia Hao asked, would Lei Qiangque listen to his patient? Ye Fan smiled and assured Hao that there wouldn't be any problem. The guy still had his own plans for that doctor. Suddenly, the guy heard his phone ring. He chuckled in surprise. Who else could possibly need him? Maybe something had happened. Fan Wu's ex-fiancée called him in tears and told him she had treated him unfairly, but could he do her a favor? The guy couldn't understand why Yufei was crying so much. What could have happened for her to call him in tears? He asked his ex-fiancée what had happened, who had wronged her, and the guy assured her that he would help her get even with him. The girl sobbed, Yi Fan! He had always truly been kind to her and had always treated her well, even now. She told Fan that her second uncle was forcing her to marry Li Yun-young and that the engagement banquet would be held that very night. The young woman, in tears, begged her ex-fiancé to save her from that marriage. She didn't want to become the wife of that pompous dandy. Yi Fan frowned. Another Li Yongyan. It wasn't enough for him to steal from the Su family. Now, he also wanted to force Yufei into marriage. He cheerfully told his ex-fiancée to come pick him up and that he would help her teach Li Young a lesson he wouldn't forget. At the appointed time, Ye Fan and Xuan Yufei walked arm in arm to the entrance of the restaurant where the Li family's engagement banquet was being held. Yufei told Fan that she knew he was still angry with her, but back then, her second uncle, who was the head of the family, forced her to break off the engagement. Her father was in the hospital, and if there wasn't enough money to continue his treatment, he could die at any moment. Yufei had no other choice. Fan remembered that, in fact, shortly after his car accident 5 years ago, Yufei's father also had an accident and was left paralyzed. The girl, through tears, said that Fan had always been the only one she ever loved. Otherwise, she wouldn't have stayed faithful to him for these 5 years. Ye Fan decided that even though she seemed helpless, he was there for an even more important reason, so he had to play along with Yufei. One of the guests exclaimed, "It looks like the bride has arrived." "Young Master Li, go out and greet her quickly. Everyone wants to see the couple." Yufei clung in horror to her ex-fiancé's hand, while Ye Fan thought with a smile that the real show was about to begin. Everyone congratulated Li. "His wish had come true," the groom replied. "Xuan Yufei has no choice but to end up in my bed. And when he takes control of the powerful force behind Yufei's mother, even the Liu family from the provincial capital won't be able to control him." Yunyang dreamed that tonight those beautiful legs and the power behind them would be his. But suddenly, Li was stunned, his mouth hanging open. His fiancée was standing arm in arm with Ye Fan, and the girl firmly told Li Yunyang that she needed to have a serious conversation with him right now. The groom, angry, shouted, "What's going on? Why did Yufei bring this idiot here? Did she forget about the engagement?" Wang Fugui threatened Li Yunyang, telling him to watch his language, and asked how he dared to talk to his brother like that. "Young Master Yi is the one you should be talking to your brother about." If Fugui hears Li Yunyang call Ye Fan an idiot again, he'll get really upset. Li asked, "Does Fugui still think he's young Master Ye?" "The Ye family is finished. The old man and that idiot will soon be joining the relatives." Instead of answering, Wang Fugui gave the pompous Li Yunyang a hard slap that knocked out the would-be groom's teeth. Lying on the sidewalk, Yun shouted that Wang Fugui must be tired of living, and the beaten groom frantically called for help from the family's security. Wang Fugui growled, "Trash that doesn't even have a trace of spiritual fighting energy. Do you really think you can intimidate him and the great Ye family?" Jia Hao said, "Young Master Li, please calm down. It would be inappropriate to resort to violence at such a joyful moment in life." Li Yang was bewildered. The Jia family from the provincial capital and Mr. Hu were there. Could it be that Xuan Yufei planned all of this? The girl said, "Enough with the nonsense. Both sides have guests here. Let's go inside and settle everything calmly." Young Master Li warned Xuan Yufei that he'd better think carefully about what he was doing. Otherwise, it would be too late. The host of the banquet exclaimed, "The couple is entering. The guests should give a warm welcome to the future and beautiful Lai couple." Everyone was stunned. Wasn't this supposed to be the engagement banquet for Xuan Yufei and Li Yunyang? Why did that idiot from the Yi family walk in with her? She's openly cheating on Li Yunyang. The Li family's being made a laughingstock. Things are getting interesting. The Xuan and Li families are about to become a laughingstock. The head of the Lin family asked Xuan Zhenghua what all this meant, saying he thought everything was taken care of, to which Xuan Zhenghua replied that he didn't know anything. Xuan Zhenghua rushed over to his niece and angrily asked Yufei what the hell she was doing. They had already talked everything over. The girl stubbornly remained silent. She didn't want to argue with her uncle, who had taken over her father's company, his money, and controlled the family. Her uncle demanded that she immediately apologize to the young Master Li and tell him she had acted like a spoiled child. Taking Yi Fan's hand, the girl stepped onto the stage and said, "Today, I, Xuan Yufei, want to make an announcement." Lai leaned forward. The decision to break off the engagement with the second son of the Ye family was entirely her second uncle's. She, Yufei, never agreed to it. She and Fan grew up together. They had been engaged since they were very young. Her fiancé has always been Ye Fan, and she asks everyone to give them their blessings. If he had shown even half that determination on the day of the funeral, he wouldn't be in such a pitiful situation today. Li Young angrily crushed the bouquet of flowers. He was seething with rage inside, a blessing that meant that now that girl would get everything. How dare she ask for everyone's blessings with another man at the banquet to celebrate her engagement to him, the one and only Li Yunyang? The guests were whispering that not everything seemed to be going well in the Xuan family, which made people wonder if the accident involving the head of the Shan family had really been an accident. The head of the Li family threw his wineglass to the floor in anger when he heard the mocking laughter behind him about his family's humiliation. He growled at Xingguo. Their family came here just to cause a scene. He better give a clear explanation. Otherwise, this won't end here. Xuan Xingguo muttered. Brother Lid, please calm down. This must be some kind of misunderstanding. I'll clear it up right now. The uncle shouted at his niece. Did Yufei realize that what she was doing would lead her down a path of no return and put her at odds with the Li family? The girl replied that she had thought everything through carefully, and that her uncle forcing her to marry that beast, Li Young, was a path of no return. She brought Yifan here so that everyone would know that, even if he stayed like this, she would stay by his side and love him forever. Fan realized that had been her plan from the start, to use him as a scapegoat to avoid the consequences. Xuan Yufei seems to be trying to make peace with him now. It's a shame, but it's too late. He has another woman now. Li Chunyang snorted disdainfully as he stood silently to the side, listening to the words of his supposed fiancée, Xuan Yufei. He exclaimed to her, Yufei is shameless. She and her boyfriend still dare to flaunt their feelings, and he ordered them to be killed. If Yan Yang doesn't teach them a lesson today, how will the Li family maintain their dignity and walk with their heads held high in Yanshang? He told Xuan Yufei sternly that he had treated her very well, but she still wanted to be with that idiot. At that very moment, young Master Li took another blow, even harder, to the face, sending him flying halfway across the hall. Yan Yang flipped through the air, kicking, and smashed his nose against the restaurant floor, leaving a bright red bloodstain as a mark. Fuji reminded him that he had warned him if Li Young called his brother an idiot again, he would deeply regret it. Boss Li shouted at Wang Fuji that even his own father respected Li, so who did Fuji think he was to dare hit his son? Yun's father ordered the guards to teach that brat a lesson. Who dared to raise a hand against his eldest son and disgrace the Li family? Jeffen noticed that there were many martial artists among the Li family guards. Fuji alone probably couldn't handle them. Li Hu stepped in. Argue all you want. Shout. But why fight? Have you forgotten how civilized people argue? Boss Li was outraged. Who here is talking about civilization? Him, Li Hu. He's the most uncivilized person in this whole part of the world. And then everyone saw that a machine gun was aimed at the head of the Li family and his eldest son. In a situation like that, no amount of security could save him. Wu chuckled. What's left behind me is civilization. Under the Great Master, I'll be civilized with whoever I want. Feeling cornered, the head of the Li family calmed himself and said, All right, you win this time. But this is far from over. Li Hu suggested to young Master Ye that they should head back. They had already done everything they wanted there, and there was no point in staying any longer. Xuan Yufei was delighted. Even after losing his mind, Fan had managed to gain such powerful support, and she hadn't been wrong about him. But Xuan Zhenguo grabbed his niece's hand and insisted she stop. He had something to tell her and show her. He handed her the phone. Yufei needed to first check on how her father was doing in the hospital, and only then make a final decision. On the phone screen, the girl saw her father with an oxygen mask, and her uncle's man was ready to hang up at any moment. Yufei's eyes filled with tears, and she asked her second uncle what they were trying to do. Was he really willing to kill his own brother? Sengua let out a little laugh. She forced him. There's no need to worry. It's just a weak poison, so your father will never wake up. If Yufei can watch him die, then maybe she should go after this idiot, the girl whimpered. This is your own brother, how could you? Shengo asked, so what? Why did the old man give the company to Yufei's father? Why should he be the one to control the Xuan group? That's enough. The uncle gave his niece 10 seconds to think. She had to take it back and marry Li Yinying. Otherwise, tears streamed down the girl's face. She really believed she could finally be with Jeff Fan, but then her beloved father would die. She turned to the young man and looked at him longingly, not knowing what to say, while the boy silently wondered what decision Yufei would make. Li Yinyang let out a chuckle. Jeff Fan, that brainless loser, still has delusions about what will happen to Zhuan Yufei. He's dreaming. Yun Yang was sure that Jeff Fan was an idiot. There was no way he could beat Li. At that distance, Fuji wouldn't have time to save him. Li would make him see reason. But suddenly, Zhuan Yufei stepped in to protect her ex-fiancé and shouted at Li Yunyang not to dare touch Brother Feng. Ye Fan was stunned. He hadn't expected this from his ex-fiancé. Why was she protecting him so fiercely? Even though now she herself needed protection. Li was outraged. The idiot broke off the engagement just in time. He needed an excuse to deal with the Ye family. Fan realized that Li was targeting the Ye family. All of Ye Fan's friends were outraged by the audacity of attacking someone completely defenseless, since Fan couldn't show his strength. But Fan mentally warned Xiao Hao not to interfere, that he would handle it himself, that it was time to put an end to that scoundrel Li. Ye Fan decided it was time to give the Li family and those supporting them a proper warning. They were getting way too confident. Yun Yang shouted at the idiot to stop hiding behind a woman's skirt like a coward, and that now he was going to send that fool to join his own brothers. Even though Li Yungyang's fist was coming closer, the girl didn't move away from Ye Fan, screaming shrilly, "No, don't kill him!" Fan exclaimed happily, "Could I really go join his brothers?" Young Master Li is truly a very good person. Xuan Yufei tried to stop her ex-fiancé, but he walked up to Li Yunyang with a smile, clapping cheerfully. Overjoyed at this wonderful opportunity, young Master Lin waved his useless, weak fist. Budgie roared, "If that monster Li even dares." But Xiao Hao quietly told Master Wang to wait and not interfere. A satisfied Yun Yang shouted, wishing death upon the idiot, and raised his fist above Ye Fan's head, who, to his surprise, looked calmly at Li. Fan dodged the blow, and Yun Yang threw a punch into the air with all his might. Everyone present watched this strange fight, holding their breath. Ye Fan grabbed Li Yunyang's wrist and felt a slight burning sensation, followed by unbearable pain. His arm was broken. The man asked young Master Li if he was helping him kill mosquitoes, but since there weren't any on his face, it was pointless for him to wave at him like that. Yi Fan kept holding Yun Yang's hand, subtly affecting his entire body. Lin tried to pull it away. The young man unleashed a mysterious flame of destruction at the narcissistic Young Yang, and young Master Li screamed in sharp pain. Finally, Yi Fan let go of his victim. Li Yunyang couldn't understand what had just happened to him. He felt strangely uncomfortable. The boyfriend asked Fan what the hell he had done to him. The guy answered with a goofy smile that he hadn't done anything. Maybe a mosquito had bitten him. Li Xinyang asked Fan why he was pretending to be dumb. His arm hurt unbearably. It seemed like it was some kind of secret technique. Young Master Li was baffled, not understanding how it was possible, but he could clearly feel that his arm was about to break and it hurt. It's not just a broken arm. The silver needles carry energy for combat and destruction, and Li's meridians and organs are severely damaged. The heir of the Li family roared. "It's definitely you. I will kill you." Stuttering Fan. Ex-fiancé. Protect me. I'm very scared. Yufei was outraged. Wei Yunye. Is the fan already in that state? And you still dare to accuse him of something? You have no shame. The head of the Li family approached Yunyang and told him to stop, that today was his commitment and that he shouldn't get his hands dirty. Yunyang's father gave Xuan Shenguo a meaningful look. The bride's uncle understood everything immediately. He was very afraid of angering Leader Li. Shenguo approached his niece and reminded her that her 10 seconds were up and she needed to make her final decision right then. The girl replied that she would not marry Li, that she believed Ye Fan would definitely help her, and that he might even be able to cure her beloved father. Shenguo said that Fan and the other members of the Ye family would soon be killed, and that if Yufei kept resisting, Fang would die that very night. Yufei shouted, "No, don't let Fang suffer because of me. I'll marry Li. I just ask that you don't hurt the Ye family." The uncle showed Yufei the phone. Wouldn't it have been better if she had just listened from the start? Now he had to explain everything to the guests. Chuan Sangquo smiled with satisfaction. His niece, intimidated, obediently went to the guests. He was sure that now everything would be fine. Yufei turned to her ex-fiancé and said softly, with tears in her eyes, "Brother Fang, I'm sorry. I really don't have any other choice. Everyone is against us." The girl asked for Fang to be taken away. She wouldn't allow Li Yunyang to hurt him. Fuji asked her daughter-in-law why they were tormenting her like that. She asked them to leave. She just had bad luck. Apparently, she and Ye Fan were destined to meet, but not to be together. Jie Hao asked young Master Ye if he was really going to leave everything behind. It was a shame for the girl, who had acted so bravely. Suddenly, Ye Fan declared loudly, pointing at the groom. "He's sick." Young Master Li is very sick. He can't get married. Li Yunyang laughed and replied, "You're the damn sick one. Your whole family's sick. Security? Throw them all out onto the street." As Ye Fan was leaving, he said loudly that this wasn't fun anymore, that someone would die soon, that someone would die very, very soon. And all the guests fell silent. Chuan Shenguo said angrily, "This idiot only knows how to talk nonsense." "You're finally gone. The engagement will take place." Fuji asked Fang if they could just leave things as they were. The ex-daughter-in-law looked upset. Only Sha Hao understood everything. Yufei went up on stage and apologized. She was drunk and lost control. Today's banquet was for her engagement to Li Yunyang. Fuji was furious. Even if Fang just said a word or nodded, he would crush Li Yunyang to the ground and bring his daughter-in-law Yufei back. But Yi Feng didn't respond to his loyal childhood friend. He calmly looked at the stage. Instead of answering, he counted. 3, 2, 1. At that moment, Li Yangyang's face darkened. The microphone slipped from his hands, and the groom, who was standing on the stage, staggered. Chuan Yufei gasped him here. The groom collapsed to the ground and started convulsing, foaming at the mouth. Everyone jumped up from their seats. The Li family patriarch sat next to his son and asked Yunyang what was wrong. Old Man Lai ordered them to call an ambulance immediately, since his son wasn't well. Xuan Qinggo carefully brought his finger close to Yunyang's mouth. There was no movement of air. It was as if Uncle Yufei had been doused with boiling water. He stammered as he said that the young Master Li had stopped breathing. And then he remembered Yi Fan's words just before he left. I knew it. He knew. Yi Fan clenched his fist in satisfaction. The game was over in that restaurant. It was time to go. The guests had something to think about and talk about. Xuan Yufei looked at Brother Fan with a questioning expression. Did he really know that Yunyang was going to die? Or had he killed him himself in silence? Ye Fan, seeing the girl looking at him, smiled and let her know that everything would be fine. She was stunned. So he wasn't crazy. Fan and his companions left the restaurant, the guy thought. Yufei was clearly under a lot of pressure today. And it wasn't just because of that, but why? Even if it's for the Yeth family, we can't allow the power of the Xuan family to fall completely into someone else's hands. We need to find a way to save her. Fan's thoughts were interrupted by Fuji's outburst of unrestrained joy, who literally jumped on his childhood friend and hit him on the back with his fist. He asked Brother Fan. He woke up. Well, let him speak or not. Fan sighed. Fan has no sense of proportion. Ye Fan replied to Brother Wang, why does he keep asking if he's awake or not? It's still daytime and he hasn't slept at all yet. He pushed Fugi aside, saying, it's so hot, can you move away from me? If Wang is going to stay here, how am I supposed to save anyone? Fuji begged his brother to stop lying to him. He saw with his own eyes that when Fan finished counting, Yun Yung was already done. Yafan mentally told Shil Hao to have his people quickly find out what was happening to Shen Yufei's father, the head of the Shen family, Shenhua. Jia Hao ordered Li Hu to find out which hospital Xuan Shenhua was in and what his current condition was. He bowed and obeyed. A sly old fox like the boss would never go to such lengths just to pay off a debt. Could it be that young Master Ye is already know? If that's really the case, then from now on, we must treat young Master Ye with the utmost respect, as if he were a living Buddha. President Xia reported that Xuan Shenhua was at the city's third hospital and that everyone should go there immediately. Fuji asked Hao why he was being so kind. That man was his brother's former father-in-law. What was his relationship with Xia? It was suspicious. President Xia was left speechless. He thought, this friend of Ye Fan is really strong, but he's a bit slow-witted. But Fuji still wasn't calm. Just don't tell me he fell for his ex-daughter-in-law. Wang advised Hao to get a grip. Li Gu received information that Uncle Yu Fei was afraid she would seize power and was trying to move Xuan Sanghua somewhere else. Fuji growled. This old goat still hasn't given up. He wants to use his father to put pressure on him. Hao calmed him down. He's already sent people to stop him. Yi Fan knew that Shen Guo wouldn't give up his ace in the hole so easily. Now it all depended on who was more cunning. Soon, Ye Fan and his companions arrived at the hospital where his ex-fiance's father, the head of the Xuan family, Shenhua, was being treated. The Xuan family guards were outraged. Who did they think they were, trying to barge into the very room of the Xuan family head? Without President Xuan's order, no one is allowed to take Xuan Shenhua away, which is why Shenhua's personal guard is stationed here. Fuji said he didn't care about their orders and asked how they dared to mistreat his boss's father-in-law, saying it looked like they were asking for trouble. Finally, Wang got tired of all the talking, called the guards useless trash, and scattered them with blows from his powerful fists. After brushing the remains of the guards off his hand, Wan Fuji told Ye Fan not the way was clear, and that he could go in now and check everything out. Jia Hao thought that even that big, simple-minded guy next to young Master Ye wasn't so simple after all, and shouldn't be underestimated. Ye Fan walked into Yu Fei's father's room and slammed the door shut right in Fuji's face, who jumped back in surprise. What was going on? Wang knocked on the closed door. He didn't understand why Brother Fan had locked the door. What if he needed help in there? Or something else? The man stopped near the head of the Xuan family's bed. The man lay unconscious with an oxygen mask, tangled up in tubes. This was Xuan Shenhua, the head of the Xuan family and father of Xuan Yufei, Ye Fan's former fiancé, who had been unconscious for many years. Fan lifted the upper eyelid of his would-be father-in-law and examined his eyeball. There were clear signs of prolonged poisoning. Then the man took his pulse. It was very weak, but still there, which meant that Yu Fei's father could be revived. Fan realized that when Xuan Shenhua was poisoned, they used 17 different poisons at once, which showed a considerable level of cruelty. He knew something was wrong with that accident. The wounds were minor, but they had used poison to keep Shenhua unconscious the whole time. With a compound poison of such complexity, even the slightest mistake in removing the toxins would be enough to kill him outright. However, thanks to the inheritance he received from that jade amulet, even a minor poison, even a compound one, no longer scared Yafan. The man used the Ghost Gate 13 needles technique to remove toxins, and 13 streams of blood pierced the patient's body. Soon, the streams turned black. Drawing out years of poisoning from Yufei's father's body, the veins on his face turned blue as the poison was expelled. The streams ran throughout his entire body, gathering up all the toxins. Now it was necessary to expel them, so Fan made a small cut on Xuan's finger. A dark purple liquid hissed as it spurted from Shenhua's body and dripped onto the floor beside the bed, thus releasing the poison. Shortly after, the Zhuan family had opened his eyes and let out a deep sigh. He looked around and, surprised, noticed his daughter's fiancé. Confused, he asked little Fan what he was doing there. Fan shyly greeted Uncle Xuan, but didn't say anything. Suddenly, Fan heard that a military operation was underway, that civilians had to evacuate immediately, and that disobedience would be punished by death. Yi Fan was surprised that the military was also involved in this, and at the extent of his enemy's influence, who had even subdued the army. Guel Fei, a major from the Yunqing Armed Forces headquarters, shouted menacingly. "Didn't you hear? Tell them to get out of the way immediately." Li Hu stated that this was a private room and that entry was strictly forbidden without the personal permission of the great doctor, the young master of the Ye family. The bolt snapped, the soldiers raised their machine guns, and Captain Wu Fei asked Hu if he had a death wish and decided to play a prank on the People's Army. But Li Hu insisted that they would not let the soldiers through until they showed the proper documentation. And until then, no one would be allowed to pass. The captain thought, damn, ungrateful idiots. He's just helping Xuan go. Where could the documents have come from? He said it was a secret military operation and that now they had to withdraw. Otherwise, there would be no one to blame if the bullets weren't neutralized. Li Hu ordered, brothers, to arms. Let's see how far the military dares to trample the law and if they'll start shooting here. Then Jeff Fan appeared in the hallway and said cheerfully, "Wow, there are so many soldiers here. What kind of game have you all decided to play?" As he approached the machine gun, the man asked if it was a real weapon. The soldier glanced sideways at the crazy guy, not knowing how to react. Finally, the soldier yelled at the young man, telling him he must have a death wish, that he needed to get out of there quickly, that idiots had no business being near weapons. Yefan took a step back, stumbled, and shouted that he was falling. At that moment, a small, shiny golden disc fell out of his pocket. Rolling across the floor, it stopped at the feet of the soldier who had yelled at Yefan, who didn't pay any attention to it. The soldier let out a little laugh and handed the golden disc back to the fool who had just dropped it next to him. The captain's face grew long. He asked what it was, why that symbol seemed so painfully familiar to him. He had seen it somewhere before. The soldier told the captain that there was a turtle engraved on the disc, along with 4 golden stars. The captain's eyes opened wide in surprise. The soldier remarked indifferently that it must be a toy the idiot had found in the trash, and tossed the disc into the nearest garbage can. The captain shouted out loud, "No!" and hurried to grab the prize token of one of the 4 celestial kings of the Shuangwu war zone. Gofei managed to catch the token and finally remembered that it was the real command token of the celestial king of the war zone. Its power is greater than that of a 4-star general. With this symbol, you can command millions of soldiers across 8 provinces. The soldier asked the commander what was wrong with it. Was it some idiot's toy? The captain asked. Then the token fell out of Ye Fan's pocket. Suddenly, the captain realized that this idiot might actually be one of the 4 great celestial kings of the Shuanggu war zone. He shouted at the soldiers, "All of you on your knees immediately," and he knelt down himself. The soldiers didn't understand why they were kneeling. The captain bowed to Fan. "Your subordinate pays respects to the celestial king." We have committed an offense and deserve death. The soldiers were stunned. Good heavens, Celestial Pim? Is he really the Celestial King? Lord Celestial King, please forgive us. Ye Fan smiled slyly. The token worked as it should. Now the captain will obey him and not some Xuanzhen Guo. The man asked in surprise, "Why did you suddenly kneel down? It's time to pay respects, but it's still too early. So everyone, get up." The captain replied, "We wouldn't dare. We didn't recognize your majesty and, out of ignorance, insulted you. Please forgive us." After taking the token from the captain's trembling hands, Fan exclaimed, "Are you going to give it back to me? It's so shiny, it must be valuable." Jeffin quietly told the captain that he had to keep it a secret. Otherwise, others would come and try to steal the valuable gold. Wu Fei couldn't understand what that meant. Was he really crazy or just pretending? What was the best thing he could do? As if answering the captain's unspoken question, Yifan stared at him, his face and eyes now completely different. Captain Guafei shuddered under that gaze. He realized that the young master of the Ye family wasn't crazy at all, but was just pretending to be a fool. The squad leader bowed respectfully and said they would take their leave, that he would strictly follow all orders from the Celestial King. Fei whispered to Ye Fan to be careful of Xuanzhen Guo. So today's incident was orchestrated by him. Wang Fuji asked Fan if that was really the symbol of the celestial working, which meant absolute power over Great Sha. Fan was outraged because Fuji also wanted to steal his gold. His friend laughed. "Not at all. It's just interesting to see. It's a rarity." Xuan Yufei's father was watching Ye Fan. He had already realized that the boy was playing dumb, pretending to be an idiot, but his strength had returned. Senua scolded Brother Sengguo with all her might, completely ruining her relationship with such an exceptional son-in-law as Ye Fan. Getting close to Fan represents the greatest opportunity for the Xuan family and Yu Fei's lasting happiness. This opportunity can't be missed. But Ye Fan said the situation was dangerous and asked him to keep pretending to be unconscious in front of Yu Fei. How's he supposed to warn his daughter? Suddenly, he heard his daughter's voice. She sounded very worried and was asking what was wrong with her father. Her uncle wanted to kill him. The Xuan family patriarch smiled. His beloved Yu Fei was there. What happiness to finally hear her sweet and familiar voice. When she saw Fan and Fuji, the girl demanded that they tell her how her father was, if something had happened to him, and if he was still alive. Fuji reassured his former daughter-in-law. He assured her that Brother Fang had already driven away the thugs her uncle had sent to kidnap her father. Xuan Yufei had tears in her eyes. Ye Fan had helped her once again. He had saved her beloved father's life, even though she hadn't asked him to. The girl suddenly hugged her ex-fiancé tightly and pressed her burning lips against his cheek. Fang was a little confused. Suddenly, Fang pushed Yufei away and exclaimed, "Jixu's wife forbade him from kissing other women. And since Yufei isn't his wife, kisses aren't allowed." The girl sobbed. Yes, she was no longer Fan's fiancé. Her cowardice hurt her. She really wasn't worthy of being his wife. Fuji tried to comfort his former daughter-in-law, asking her why she tortured herself like that, since everyone's life circumstances are different. Yufei said, "I committed an injustice in the past. Today, I swear to the heavens that for the rest of my life, I will belong only to Ye Fan." Fan smiled and said that he had refused, that she was the first to reject him, that he already had a wife, Yixue, and that she had promised to give birth to a healthy child for him. Yufei was shocked. Were they really already planning to have a child? How could everything happen so fast? It wasn't normal. Yen Fan's ex-fiancé's face turned red. She stayed silent for a moment, but then made up her mind and walked over to her beloved. She took Fan by the hand and said firmly, "Whatever she can do, I can do too." The boy opened his mouth in surprise. Yufei was very glad. Suddenly, Yi Fan heard the angry voice of his Yikshu, who called out to her husband. One of Fan's wives was standing in the hallway, furious. She told Yufei that she already knew how she had used Ye Fan to escape from an unwanted marriage and how she had publicly betrayed him. Fan has 7 wives who truly love them. He wouldn't even look at a woman as cruel and empty as Zhuan Yufei. Yikshay advised Yufei to leave immediately, since Sister Lin Long would be back soon, and she wouldn't be nearly as kind to her. Yufei replied that she understood everything. She said she would do her best to change the way they saw her, and promised Fan that she would find him again. Jeff Fan asked if, when Lin Long's wife returned, he should be the one to do it. I should go pick her up at the airport and take her home. Lin Long will take Fan to a doctor for treatment, and once he recovers, we'll see if he dares to flirt with other women again. Ye Fan was satisfied with Lei Qianqui's support. He could easily provide medication formulas to Zhu Yixay's company. That same afternoon, Ye Fan and his friends went to the airport to pick up Yu Lin Long and the renowned doctor Lei Qingqi, who were arriving at their destination. Fan watched the passengers closely, wondering when his wife, Yu Lin Long, would appear. His inseparable companions stayed close by. Hao ordered everyone to stay alert. The enemies didn't want Ye Fan to recover and would attack the young master or Master Lei. Fugui was surprised. Master Lei is a sacred doctor, a national treasure of great Xia. Would they really dare to attack him? Li Hu replied, "Just try it." 30 strangers appeared, among them martial artists. Wang was shocked. So many. Fan realized that relying solely on his own strength wasn't enough. He needed to form a team of capable and absolutely loyal subordinates. As always, Ye Fan mentally transmitted instructions to Xia Hao on how to handle the situation, and the head of the Xia clan understood everything. Hao ordered them to take out the weakest first and leave those who couldn't be defeated to him. He has his own methods. Li Hu bowed. The enthusiast stepped aside and stopped near the flight schedule, trying to discreetly observe the situation in the airport hall. Suddenly, he sensed the aura of a martial arts master, which meant that enemies had appeared in the hall. Fan tensed out. He needed to listen to their conversation. One of the fighters reported to the boss that they had lost contact with most of their men, and that Shia's subordinates had already neutralized them. The old man asked how many people were left. The fat one replied that it was just him and the skinny one. If you counted the boss, then there were only 3 left. The angry boss hit the fat man. "Useless trash. Is this what you were taught? What are we supposed to do now? This operation can't fail." The fat man rubbed his bruised spot and begged the boss not to get mad, saying they'd think of something, that they still had some time left. But the boss objected. There's no time left. The revered Dr. Lei Qianqi was about to get off the plane. He must not treat Ye Fan. The boss ordered the fat man and his partner to stop Ye Fan and his group and said he would go try to stop Dr. Lei Qianqi himself. The old man ordered that the revered Dr. Lei Qianqi be stopped at all costs. He must not meet that idiot Ye Fan. Finally, among the arriving passengers, the revered Dr. Lei Qianqi appeared, accompanied by the Valkyrie Yu Lin Long. After all, the revered doctor is a nationally recognized master, so it's best to try to intimidate Lei Qianqi first and force him to back off. But if Lei Qianqi still insisted on entering Yincheng to save Ye Fan, he would be mercilessly killed. Yan Fan exclaimed, "Look, they're coming out, over there." Now the hardest part was about to begin. It was necessary to protect the revered doctor. 2 fighters appeared in front of Wang Fugui. One of them said that for such a big guy to dare interfere with their plans, he must be brave, but definitely stupid. Fugui sized up his opponents. The fat guy and the skinny guy, despite their ridiculous appearance, were clearly very strong fighters. Wang tried to ask them who they were and where they came from, to buy time while the others regrouped with Lin Long and the revered doctor. But the fat man was the first to attack Wang Fugui, trying to knock him out. It seemed the opponents had decided he was the strongest one in the whole operation. Higui cursed. A surprise attack. He dodged the blow and realized there was no way to stall for time. The fighters meant business. Looking back, Fugui saw a huge dent in the concrete pillar made by the blow from that fat, clumsy man. Wang realized that was the level of martial arts mastery, which meant the fat man was almost on par with him. If the other guy was just as skilled, then things were looking bad. Instead of answering, the skinny fighter kicked at Fugi. Fan's friend dodged, flipping through the air towards some opponents. Before the guy could even land, the fat man punched him in the chest, nearly slamming him into a concrete pillar at the airport. Xiahao asked Wang if he was okay and if he needed help, but Fu Gui replied that he was fine and could handle them. Fu Gui cursed silently, 1 against 2, and both were martial arts masters. It would be tough, but he had no other choice. Ye Fan noticed that the leader of the attacking group was heading quickly toward Yu Linlong and the sacred doctor who had just appeared. The leader was sure there was no need to worry about the idiot. Fan shouted, "Hey man, why are you running? You took my toy, give it back." Meanwhile, the fat man kept attacking Wang Fugui. His blows were pretty strong, and his skinny partner stood by to back him up. Ye Fan saw that his childhood friend was having a hard time against 2 martial artists and was just doing his best to defend himself. To help his friend, Fan quietly tossed a small stone at the fat man, aiming it right at a specific spot on his fleshy body. The fat man suddenly froze. His body stopped obeying him. He couldn't understand why he couldn't move or how to keep fighting. The mercenary's eyes suddenly filled with fear. His fist was stuck in midair, as if he had suddenly become paralyzed, and beads of sweat were running down his face. Wang Fuquai looked at his opponent in surprise, wondering why he had suddenly stopped attacking and just froze in place. Yen Friend's friend decided this was the perfect chance to finally get rid of the annoying fat guy and move on to the next stage with the skinny one. He hit the fat man with all his strength, knocking him to the ground. Fugi's opponent was still paralyzed and, for all practical purposes, was already out of the fight. Fugui exclaimed, "Wow, my overwhelming aura can immobilize enemies and literally freeze them in place. How cool is that?" The skinny guy was confused about what had just happened. He couldn't take down the fat guy. This big guy was more or less on the same level as them. How did he manage to knock down the fat guy? Inspired by his victory, Wang Fugui headed toward his second opponent. The skinny guy gritted his teeth and took a few steps back from the brute. The scared, skinny mercenary shouted at the top of his lungs for Fugui not to come any closer. He didn't want to fight him anymore and begged for mercy. A couple of seconds later, the skinny fighter was already lying on the airport lobby floor, beaten, toothless, in a pool of his own blood, and moaning softly. Fugui laughed in satisfaction. There was nothing else to do. He had gotten stronger and managed to defeat 2 serious opponents all by himself. Awesome! Suddenly, Fugui heard Ye Fan's heartbreaking scream. The guy shouted, "He stole my toy! Stop this bad man! He's so evil!" Tears were streaming down the man's face. He was shouting throughout the airport, "This man stole my toy! Don't run away! Give it back! Give it back! It's my favorite toy!" The crowd buzzed. Wearing glasses, and yet you're not ashamed to steal from a child. Stealing a toy from a kid is just cruel. Stop running. Stop right there. The leader of the attackers cursed. "When did I ever take your toy? What's gotten into this idiot's head?" People grabbed his hands. There's no time to waste on these fools. We need to join our allies, break through Yu Linlong's defenses, and take down Lei Qiankui. First, we have to get rid of this idiot who's following us everywhere and yelling all over the airport. He's drawing way too much attention. The assassin used the divine step technique, instantly separating himself from the crowd of defenders of the offended children who were condemning him. The guy smiled smugly. That ultra-fast movement technique is his trademark. He always leaves everyone else behind. Suddenly, the man heard a loud shout again from a young man with an intellectual disability behind him, who kept yelling, "Give me back my toy! Where's my toy?" When he turned around, the boy asked Ye Fan why he was still following him. Fan smiled and asked why his brother was running. Apparently, it was his fault. The guy snapped back to his senses. He couldn't let himself get distracted. He had almost caught Lei Qiankui. Just a little bit more. Those two were literally just 2 steps away from him. And then the guy appeared in front of Yuling Long and the Divine Doctor, calling out to Master Lei, intending to ask him to leave. But at that moment, Ye Fan grabbed his leg and pulled hard. The guy didn't see that coming. He stumbled, lost his balance, and fell to the ground. They had just arrived in Cloud City, and Lin Long and his famous companion looked in surprise at the mercenary lying in front of them. Yi Fan burst out laughing. He had finally caught the thief. Now, without a doubt, he would get back his favorite toy that had just been stolen. Yu Linglong asked Yi Fan in surprise why he was there, and she realized that something was going on related to her arrival. Fan pointed at the mercenary resentfully and told his wife Linlong that she had arrived just in time, that this bad man had stolen his favorite toy. Unable to take it anymore, the assassin yelled at the idiot to leave him alone, to stop taking his toys, and to quit driving him crazy with his shrill screams and whining. Yulin Long watched the mercenary closely. She found this guy very suspicious, and his aura was pretty strong. Ye Fan didn't leave his victim alone. He grabbed him by the shoulder and kept yelling that he had taken his toy and needed to give it back. And then the mercenary realized that the command's order was to prevent Li Chongwei from healing Ye Fan. But wouldn't it be easier to just finish off Ye Fan himself and be done with it? Even if he doesn't kill him but leaves him seriously injured with no chance of recovery, that would already be a big win against the Yi family. But despite the killer's forceful influence, Yi Fan kept shouting insistently that the thief should finally give his toy back. The mercenary was stunned. How is that possible? He was channeling his destructive energy directly into the idiot's body, and the guy couldn't care less. Suddenly, Yi Fan's face turned serious. He grabbed the killer's hand and squeezed his wrist. The mercenary was trying to kill him. It was time to fight back. With a frown, Fan sternly told the killer that bad people have to suffer. Without letting go of the man with glasses hand, the destruction had already begun. The guy was stunned in surprise. His face grew long and was covered in sweat. So standing before him wasn't some idiot, but that great young genius. Ye Fan lifted his opponent's arm and strengthened his hold over the killer's body, the one who had planned to kill the saintly Dr. Lei. The mercenary howled in pain. He suddenly felt his level drop rapidly. His aura began to change drastically. His body twisted in agony. When Fan let go of his hand, the mercenary dropped to his knees, unable to understand how his level had fallen from Grand Master to the control stage in just a second. The guy grabbed Ye Fan by the chest and screamed in desperation, demanding to know what that idiot had done to him, how he could have lowered his cultivation level so much. Yu Linlong angrily asked the man with glasses how he dared to lay a hand on her husband. Because of that, he would die right now, and the Valkyrie's fist burned with fighting energy. The mercenary shouted and tried to block Linlong's attack, but the enraged Valkyrie dealt him considerable damage with her strike. The man with glasses arrogantly asked if she, the stupid sheep, knew who was backing him, how she dared to raise her hand against him and defend that idiot Yi. The mercenary frantically wondered what to do. The main thing was that as long as he was alive, there would always be a chance to turn things around. First, he had to retreat. But suddenly, the man with glasses felt the life draining from his body, his energy leaving him, and realized in horror that he was about to die. Yu Linglong was surprised that this had happened to the attacker. Why did he die lying right at her feet? She thought he was strong. Confused, she said she had only used the full power of her martial arts control level, and that guy just up and died. Ye Fan let out a quiet chuckle to himself. After such a drop in level, how could he possibly withstand the attack of such a powerful Valkyrie? The holy Dr. Li Chongkei laughed thoughtfully. It seemed there were a lot of people who really didn't want the Ye family to recover and survive. Suddenly, Lei heard that it would be best for him to leave Yuncheng immediately and forget about treating Ye Fan. Otherwise, he'd soon end up in the grave. Linlong shouted to Elder Lei to be careful. The Yen family's enemies were trying to attack him. They were willing to do anything. The doctor let out a chuckle. Did this bunch of lowlifes really think they could intimidate an old man like him? The Ye family suffered because of scum like them. The sage Dr. Lei Chienke struck the young man who threatened him, saying, "Looks like you're one of those who brazenly attacked the Ye family." The guy snickered. "You old fool, you brought this on yourself, so don't blame me for being especially cruel and ruthless to an old man." Seeing the color of the flaming blade, Lei realized it was poison. The assassin wanted to poison him, so the sage healer dodged the knife strike. The boy cried out, but the old man still tried to dodge it, in vain. It was too late. The assassin bid the doctor farewell with a smile. Leichenko was terrified. With so many attacks coming so fast, there was no way he could dodge them all. Would those bastards really dare to kill him? Yu Linglong shouted to Elder Lei to save him. The girl was desperate. Was there really no one who would save Yi Fan, her only hope? Suddenly, Ye Fan appeared next to the assassin. He asked who had hit him, said it hurt, and in response, shoved the smiling guy. No one had time to understand how the assassin ended up between the rain of blades and the holy healer Lei, taking the attack from his own poisoned blades himself. The guy screamed in horror. There was no escape from that poison, and he knew it perfectly well, which meant his miserable life as a mercenary was coming to an end. As he was dying, the young man realized that someone had used the ultimate movement technique, long lost to time, the celestial star reversal. But who could it have been? The assassin collapsed at his victim's feet and muttered, "This is impossible. That lunatic Ye Fan couldn't have used this technique." Lei realized that the guy in the colorful shirt was supposed to be his last trump card against me. But how could he die so easily? Fan walked up to the dead assassin, laughing and shouting, "Get up and play with me. What's wrong? Can't play anymore?" The sage doctor watched his old friend Chang Feng's friend closely. Could it really have been Ye Fan who did this, even though they thought he was crazy? Yu Linglong grabbed her young husband by the ear and pulled him toward her. It was obvious that the deaths of those two powerful enemies were his doing. She angrily questioned Ye Fan, since he had already recovered and dared to trick her. The young man shouted, "I knew this woman wouldn't be easy to fool." Yi Fan said in an aggrieved tone, "That hurts. Linlong's wife is bullying her husband. That's just too cruel." And the girl suddenly felt feverish. The young man naively said that he thought she had come so they could sleep together, but instead she was pinching him, while Yixui's wife was being very affectionate with him. Yu Linglong blushed with embarrassment and muttered that Ye Fan shouldn't say such nonsense, and the people around them were left speechless by such a comment. Valkyrie thought irritably that Fan was still completely crazy. How could he say such things in public and shock everyone around him? She introduced her husband, Ye Fan, to the holy Dr. Lei and asked him to cure him and help him recover from a terrible accident. The doctor suggested that they first find a quiet place so he could examine the young man and then discuss the treatment. Soon they arrived at one of the Ye family houses, where the holy doctor and his patient could talk in peace, and the doctor could decide what to do. Lei Chianka politely asked young Master Ye to extend his hand so he could examine him and see what was happening with his body. The old man smiled and told the young man to behave himself. Then he would buy him lots of sweets and nice toys to play with. Instead of answering, Ye Fan silently took the holy doctor's hand and let him check his pulse for a few seconds, which greatly surprised the renowned doctor. Fan said to Lei, "Your pulse is racing. It seems you haven't been getting much rest lately. Last night, around midnight, you had a drink." The doctor was stunned and asked the young man in surprise, "How did you know that? That means you're completely sane and just pretending to be an idiot." Yi Fan confirmed that it was true, that he had already recovered, but he couldn't tell anyone else for the safety of the Yi family. It was Ye Fan who saved Lei at the airport from the pear blossom rain weapon using the ultimate movement technique, celestial star reversal. Ye Fan confirmed that everything was correct, but there were two matters in which he truly needed the help of the great sacred doctor Lei Chanke. Lei was surprised that, with such martial arts knowledge and excellent medical skills, how could he possibly help? Fan explained, "Only Jia Hao knows about my recovery. This puts me in a tough spot. Master Lei, I need your help." The holy healer replied to the young man, "As an old friend of your grandfather, I won't refuse you any help you need, if it's within my power." "Young man," he exclaimed, "excellent! The formula for Sun Company's cosmetic product has been stolen. I want you to provide me with a replacement formula." The holy healer said in confusion that he didn't have any cosmetic formulas with him. Fan smiled, but he actually had all of that. "This cream is made according to the formula recorded in the Divine Pharmacist's canon. It must be heated for exactly 8 minutes. This is very important." Dr. Lei was amazed that all the ingredients were just common medicinal herbs, but the way they were combined and processed was simply unheard of. Lei exclaimed, "This is simply incredible. I've practiced medicine my whole life, and just seeing this lost formula has made all the effort worthwhile." The doctor bowed and said, "Young Master Yi, tell me what I need to do. I'll do whatever it takes, no matter how dangerous it is." Yi Fan felt embarrassed. "There's no need to be so formal. The second matter concerns my grandfather. I want you to help restore his health." Lei sighed. "I am afraid I can't do that. I've been treating him for a long time. He's had a latent illness since his youth, and after that blow, his strength is almost completely gone. Unfortunately, it's now impossible to cure Ye Chengfeng." Dr. Lei sighed. "It's my fault for being so incompetent." Ye Fan assured him, "You did everything you could to save my grandfather. We need methods that go far beyond modern medicine." Hyangka exclaimed, "Do you really have another lost ancient medical formula that could help even in this case?" Fan promised Lei to teach him the complete acupuncture technique, which would extend his grandfather's life by at least 20 years, or even more. The healing phage was stunned. He had heard of that technique, but it was believed to be completely lost and that no one possessed it anymore. The first needle is called Guanyin's tears. Energy is used to make the needle vibrate and gently rotate it to stimulate blood flow. The second needle is called Buddha's Great Compassion. The needle is inserted and then energy is applied to maintain the patient's vital force. Lei was astonished. These were the 13 needles of the Ghost Valley, a supreme lost technique recorded in the Divine Pharmacist's canon. The young man smiled. The sacred healer has a sharp eye. Yes, this is truly the correct technique, and Lei will master it to treat his grandfather. Lei exclaimed that this technique could snatch life from the very lord of the underworld, but Fan had gone 5 years without knowing about it until he found out. Wait, 5 years ago, a young genius appeared who was said to bring the dead back to life. Then he disappeared, so it was Fan. The young man smiled modestly. "Yeah, that was me." He never expected that anyone would still remember his old nickname from 5 years ago. The saintly Dr. Lei Kanke fell to his knees before the young man and bowed to him respectfully. Fan was stunned to see what was happening to the old man. Unexpectedly, the doctor bowed and said, "Disciple Lei Qiangke thanks the master for his wise teachings and valuable knowledge." Yi Fan was bewildered. He asked Dr. Lei what he was doing and begged the old man to stand up. What kind of master was he supposed to be to him? This was ridiculous. But Lei insisted that 5 years ago, Fan's skills were already enough to be a master, and now he hoped to stay and keep learning. The young man nodded. "All right, you can call me that in private, but in front of others, just call me Yethan. Don't reveal my identity." Lei asked what he should tell his wives, and Fan replied that he needed to explain to everyone that his grandson Ye's condition was gradually improving. In that case, the people behind the attacks on the family will definitely lose their composure and be forced to take action. Shouts could be heard at Elder Zon's residence. The owner of the estate was yelling that his subordinates were a bunch of useless idiots. Many people tried to stop the doctor, but they all died. Now, Ye Fan will recover, and then the resurgence of the Ye family will be unstoppable. The subordinates tried to calm the old man down, but Lei Qingke only said there was a possibility, though the final outcome was still uncertain. The old man roared. If Lei hadn't been sure, he wouldn't have organized such a banquet at the Ye residence, with all the city's important figures present. At just 15 years old, Ye Fan was already a powerful genius. If he recovered, even more people would side with the Yi family. One of the advisors said it seemed like we could only solve the problem at its root. Otherwise, our plan would surely be thwarted. The old man nodded. All right, make sure everything is done properly. This time, the advisor will handle it personally. The man bowed and assured Old Man's son that he wouldn't let him down. That idiot Yi Fan would go down with his brothers this time. Fan gently hugged Yikshe and told her not to worry, that her young husband would recover very soon and would be smart and strong. The girl blushed and told Fan that he needed to take his medicine properly. That way, he would get better even faster. At that moment, Yu Linlong walked into the room and asked Yikshui if they were doing this together. They hadn't planned on doing it now, in broad daylight. Yikshui blushed with embarrassment. Linlong reassured her. What was there to be embarrassed about? Hadn't they married Ye Fan to continue his family line? Fan hugged Linlong with a smile and said, maybe Linlong's wife also wants to continue the family line. The girl blushed with embarrassment. The young man cheerfully said that people say it's great to sleep with him. Yu Linlong pushed him away, demanding that he stop touching her like that. Linlong pulled away and exclaimed, go sleep with your Yikshe, it's not my turn right now. Fan laughed. Linlong's wife felt embarrassed. The eldest daughter-in-law was puzzled. It was just a fleeting touch. Why do I feel this way? That brat Yi Fan did it on purpose. That sly little dabble. Could he have fully recovered? That would be great. Around midnight, Sha Hao's luxury car stopped in front of the Ye family residence. They had to deal with yet another enemy. Ye Fan asked to be taken to the city's central bridge, but Hao warned him that the Wang family was already waiting there. At first glance, it looks like a ransom payment, but in reality, they want to kill the kidnapper. Does Fan really want to personally send Chong along with his son? Fan smiled. Why make things so complicated? I've already set up a meeting with the person who paid me to kill myself. Now all they can do is sit back and watch the tigers fight each other, then finish off whichever animal survives. Shortly after, Ye Fan and Sha Hao arrived at the central bridge in Yuncheng. They circled the exit and watched the cars. The head of the Wang family ordered everyone to stay alert. As soon as that degenerate showed up, they would take him out immediately and without remorse. Suddenly, Wang Zhong heard his phone ring. Another message had arrived. The man shuddered. He was worried about his son. The message read, Dad, I'm afraid I won't make it. They're gonna kill me. I put the phone in the kidnapper's pocket. Avenge me. Chong growled, Son of a bitch, keep calling this number. As soon as I find this monster, I'll tear him apart with my own hands. Wang Chao's phone was in Ye Fan's hands, and now he had to figure out how to slip it into the pocket of the person who ordered his and his grandfather's murder. The young man set the device to turn on automatically after 10 minutes, which should be enough for it to work. A faint smile appeared on Fan's face. Another key player was about to take the stage, and I wondered who it would be. Suddenly, he saw a familiar car, driven by a man whom everyone in the He family considered almost like a relative and trusted completely. The fan really hoped that man was just passing by, but the car turned right toward the exit under the bridge. There was no mistake, so it really was the Zhu family. Yi Changfeng treated them like family, and they were planning to kill the old man. Ye Fan saw that Shu Dong, the eldest son of the family head, was driving, which meant the father had sent his son to negotiate with the killer. The young man stepped onto the road and shouted, Stop! Pull over! Dong cursed and slammed on the brakes. What the hell is going on? The car stopped just a few meters in front of Ye Fan, leaving a black skid mark behind. The driver was furious. Jumping out of the car, Shu Dong shouted, Hey, are you looking to die? Are you tired of living? Why are you throwing yourself under the wheels? Suddenly, the driver recognized him. It was Ye Fan. The young man said,